All right. Hello and welcome everybody to the anime show that I cannot name properly. With me here to this season is Yuki.
Hi, Yuki guys.
Right. And we are here to go over all of the newest anime from the previous winter season of 2025. Just a little heads up. These are not reoccurring seasons or ongoing series or spinoff of previous series. These are all entirely new shows, with the exception being reboots from the original source material of a show, rebooting it for a modern audience. We have seen a couple of these over our previous seasons, such as Ranma, as well as a Gundam. All right, Gundam gets a weird pass because it's not part of an ongoing canon, and it does do original series. Those things like that will also be counted. But everything here is brand new. If you started it this season, you are starting from the beginning. And with that, we have our rank system.
Yes. So way up at the top at S tier, we have shows that are indispensable, that will leave a lasting impact on the anime community, or that are in some way considered kind of a true masterpiece and have maybe like elevated the art form itself in some manner. This is a coveted rank. It is difficult to achieve. It is not entirely uncommon for there to be no shows whatsoever that achieve this rank in a given season. Very, very good seasons, we might see 2 or 3 of these at best. Below that, we have A rank. A rank is shows that are of high quality, but are not quite in the S tier. Things that are very enjoyable, very well crafted, very well done, but not necessarily a complete masterpiece, or that may not really have quite enough staying power for people to continue talking about them and caring about them too much past the current season. Shows that are in S or A rank will probably be something that even someone who is not an enjoyer of that genre would be advised to watch. Below that, we have B rank. B rank is still a decent quality series, but the sort of thing that's maybe just not quite good enough to be watched much by someone outside of a fan of that genre. Further down, we have C rank. C rank is, as one might expect, very mid anime. This is stuff that's just very average, and it probably is not going to be enjoyable at all to someone outside of its given fan base. Below that, we have the trash tier. It should be noted that trash is not necessarily bad. We enjoy trash here. We are connoisseurs of trash. And there are many shows that can be considered trash, but may still have a lot of redeeming qualities. Nonetheless, if the show meets certain criteria in terms of its content, and or at times is kind of janky, it will tend to make it into the trash tier. Shows that have a huge focus on things like fan service tend to end up in this category. And down below that, we have Skip. Skip is primarily intended to be used for anime that we ourselves could not bring ourselves to watch, especially to completion, or especially, I should say, much of it at all. But we will also occasionally put anime there that we recommend to our audience that you skip. If we are recommending to you that you skip something, that is a show that we are considering to be irredeemably bad, even as a hate watch within even the context of its own genre niche audience.
If you've made it into the skip, you have failed to meet basic expectations of an audience that has limited time to watch you. This category didn't.
Or you were just way outside our own zones and we were not able to find the time to take a crack at it.
I feel like there might be a couple extra with that in there this season.
I feel like there's a few that kind of will end up in there on both grounds.
Yeah. Okay, and with the general explanation and everyone ready, we have a smorgasbord of actual garbage. Blech.
Yes, the hot trash is especially hot and trashy this season, and particularly abundant.
Oh dear God, it is. All right, Yuki, you are handling our trailers for tonight. What do we have up on the first one here?
We are leading off with Honey Lemon Soda.
初めて会うとても綺麗な男の子。おはよ
よくできました。
う。今日も石みたいに固まっていられますように。どんくさくてぼーっとしててみんなでいじめてたし。
おい、そこのブッソブサイク。次こいつに何かしたら俺が許さねえから。
夢は見るだけだった。
そんなもん俺が簡単に叶えてやる。
友達だよ
石森ちゃん隣か。よろしくね。勉強すんの？じゃあファミレ追加ね。お前自分のこと何だと思ってんの？石でもお前は宝石なんだよ。すげえな。
何者なんだろうな、ミイラくんって。相変わらず人気のないところで寝てんだ。聞かなかったことにするけどね。あの日から私には三浦くんが全てで、私三浦くんのことが好きなんだ。見つけた。
石森ちゃん、俺は可愛いと思うよ。恋愛対象じゃないんでしょ？そういうんじゃねえけど。撤回する。
Oh no!
Not yet.
Skipped me into a different preview.
Yep. Okay, I know. I think this was on my side of the list to watch. Like after we did
Which
our
is
opening,
shocking because it's a relationship anime.
though we were trying to divvy a couple of these up because I know there's one on here too that you just watched an episode of and you were just like, no, I hate this character.
Yeah, I still actually I think ended up completing that one, but if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I forgot I had this on my list. Honestly, I keep I watched the opening bits of this for our pre-review, and it just faded into the back of my mind every time. I could not remember this. I also did not watch past this, and even on my last minute scramble of oh, let's try to power through a couple things, I still forgot about this. This show came off as so. Oh, what's the romance genre called again?
well, I'd say this is like shoujo romance.
Yeah, it's a shoujo romance with a blonde pretty boy who likes lemon soda in a kind of dweeby girl who's not really expressive. I'm trying to. I'm a little piece. It's like you've seen these before. You know what this boilerplate. It's it's a very box standard show. I don't want to put it into skip, but okay. You feel like you want to say something?
Yeah, I made it to about episode 5 of this, and like I'm in kind of the same boat, right? Like animation wise, hypothetically, it could almost reach like a B tier, but a lot of the shots are just so like static that kind of drops it down a little bit for me. The other thing about it is it's partly because of that. It just feels so slow and incredibly boring. And that's partly because, as you said, it's kind of very boilerplate and has nothing really fresh to it. But it's also the pacing of the show itself. So I think, like, from an objective standard, this is kind of a C. But even as someone who watches this type of show, I found myself extremely disinterested in it and shying away from it every time that I saw it on my list, even when I was out of other stuff to watch. So it's definitely somewhere between a C and a skip for me.
I want to throw this in skip. It's like I know I have my bias, which let's finish this, and I forgot to go over our general tastes. I will make a list of things to start on with this and go through it at one season. But just if you have nothing else to watch and you want to watch a shoujo pretty looking, very basic and rudimentary high school love drama story.
Yeah, I feel like there was one other aspect to it that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, which was the like white knighting that was going on in the show. It just, I don't know, it doesn't feel right for the era that we live in anymore.
If I honestly, like, I agree with you. This feels like not the shoujo, but that early 2000s Kyuchi, like, just deluge of anime we got back then.
Yeah, it honestly kind of feels almost like it came right out of that era as like a very forgettable show from that era. Yeah, like I'm tempted to call this a C just based on the fact that we really don't have any competition, like direct competition for this show this season, but like
there were far better romances in this season. Like even that
there have been, yeah. And not shoujo romances necessarily, but yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with keeping it in skip, I think. I can't really, in good conscience, recommend this to anyone.
Yep. But okay, a little quick side note before we move on, because we did forget to introduce our biggest taste. I am Agent Q over here. Hello. And my general specialties are your shonen, your mecha, your ultra macho man, high action octane, as well as my sci-fi dramas.
Also covering sports for us, typically.
Yeah, I do have a weird loving for sports. I don't know why, but for some odd reason, I just like the competition. My weaknesses generally.
The spirit of competition calls to you.
You know, you're not wrong. I just love a little good, solid PvP. I don't go over the top with stuff, but I do like a good challenge. My general weaknesses are your romance, your shoujo, your slice of life feels like my biggest dry spot. Modern day, especially.
Whereas I'm very much heavy on like the fantasy genre. I'll dip into things like space and mechs a little bit. Shonen, it really kind of depends on the show for me. And my side of things that I cover also tends to be pretty heavy into the romance and slice of life categories because I do usually watch those pretty frequently. Also, both of us will definitely cover the ecchi genres and the various hot trash stuff.
Yes, we happen to be slightly horny co-hosts. Although, one little side note, I tend to cover the villainess shows somehow.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, it's a weird though. It's like I like the fantasy trash villainess. You seem to bounce off of them very hardly.
For the most part, this season, and it looks like this coming season, might be weird exceptions.
Yeah, they are expanding on it, but all right. Moving on to what we have on next. What is on the list, Yuki?
Next up, we have I'm Getting Married to a Girl I Hate in Class. Oops. We don't need to know where in the airs, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. Yuki did the majority of the cover of this. I did watch a couple of this, and I bounced off of this so hard. I hate this main love interest character.
Yeah, I seem to recall that she was definitely kind of your antagonist this season.
Okay, the yandere, I hate you, but I really like you, so I'm going to be extra mean to you trope. I think I liked it when I was younger, but as I get older, look at relationships more, I hate that with such a fervent passion nowadays that putting that kind of character in a show irks me in such a horrible way that I could not get over that with this.
So I will say that, in my personal opinion, this female lead was, for the most part, kind of trash. I don't mean that in the trash tier sense of the tier list, but in the sense of she herself as a person was kind of garbage and kind of one of the least one of the worst aspects of the show, okay? So I'll certainly agree with you there. She is not my most hated female protagonist this season by a wide margin, however.
I've got a good feeling on who that is, but yep.
Yeah. I will say for this show, the supporting cast of other girls in the harem were much, much better. In fact, Shisei, for those who are interested in that kind of thing, is probably the best Emoto character of the season by a wide margin. She's pretty excellent in that regard.
I can't think of too many others, though. I can't think of too many others, but I think you covered more of the slice of lifey stuff this season than I could get to.
Yeah, it is true that it was kind of not a very Emoto heavy season, for whatever reason. But there was another Emoto character in this show, and she was better than that one. That said, the best aspect of this show turned out to be the relationship between the blonde-haired girl and the female lead, and how that played out near the end of the season. Their arc with each other was surprisingly good. They took a very...
Can I take a wild guess? Because I only, like I said, I think I watched the first 2 on this, maybe 3. She's secretly in love with the main character, and after the main female lead finally realizes through her own thick skull and yandere-ness, she's also in love, and they have a big heart-to-heart about that in competition, correct?
More or less, but it actually comes out that the blonde girl is into the main character well before she realizes her own feelings, but and like after the blonde girl openly makes moves on him a bunch of times, She finally kind of gets it together. They do have their heart to heart. It's a decently well done interaction, but it focuses a little bit more on the aspect of their friendship and them remaining friends through it than it does the competition and rivalry aspect of it, which made it stand out a little bit to me. But overall, this show, it's probably, C tier, trash tier, something in that area.
Like I'm going to have to
It's-
defer to you on this one just because I can tell my bias is very heavy here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's not quite a horny enough show to go into the trash tier.
All right, we have our first C this time. All right, we will be moving on for the stuff we didn't lower tier, trash, other stuff quicker, but try to bring us a little bit more in depth to our higher tier stuff tonight too. So let us move
Fair enough.
on.
Next up is I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time.
So, for those of you thinking this is a fantasy show about a guild receptionist who secretly has to hide that she's a top tier adventurer while trying to get out on time from her job, you would be correct for your first 2 freaking episodes.
Yeah, this one we had pretty high hopes for, but I feel like it really didn't deliver on those hopes.
It doesn't
Animation quality was okay, but like a lot of like bad CG mixed in, and you're not going to get any Sakuga or anything like that out of the show.
I kept poking my head in for like the big stuff just because everything in between after those first episodes was fantasy adventure anime style. Oh yeah, dungeon fights, lore, a little bit of lore, a little bit of, and it's the fights were underwhelming. The battles were
It feels like they put the least amount of budget for the show into the fights.
yeah, they were just they
spent all their money on backgrounds in the guild house and ran out of budget to animate the fight sequences or something.
The fights felt like PS1 JRPG battles with like big explosions every so often.
Yeah, that's reasonably accurate. Like lots of particle effects, but not much substance.
Yep. I would have like the premise, the start of this. I was really happy with that. I think you were really happy with like what this show promised, and with its freaking name. But then just
unfortunately, it did not follow through, and what it did follow through with was very hollow feeling.
I don't want it. This thing, it doesn't do anything necessarily wrong. It doesn't do anything necessarily bad. I want to throw this
but
into
it's fantasy trash.
It's fantasy trash. Okay, we are in complete agreement. Like I didn't want to throw this even into C tier. This is just fantasy trash. This has the level. Did it have a level system or did it just have a skill system?
It just had a skill system, but the skills had like ranks. So a skill of a lower tier couldn't compete with a skill of a higher tier.
RPG ranking system. That's a good way to find yourself in the trash tier. You gotta be we don't mind it, but it's not imaginative, guys. Like, come up with lore for that. Well, you could have been great, but you turned out to be just McDonald's. The better name.
All right. Next up, we have Zenshu. Reminded me that the show had probably some of the best music of this season.
That OP is on my favorited playlist right now. Okay, so I'm going to have an extra bias towards this. I believe Yuki might have an extra bias. Zetsu is a love letter to classic animation. I don't mean as in CGI. I don't mean early 2000s. God, I don't even mean 90s. This is some of the oldest, biggest names in animation. In every show this thing loves to reference, loves to bring up, loves to show you the pure joy in that old series would find its way onto any of our S tier rankings of any season. And this show pays great homage to them in so many different ways.
Yeah, it definitely does a great job. Like, there's such a huge mix of references and stuff, all kind of pulled into this show. Some of them, very subtle unless you're familiar with that source material. And I certainly agree that I have a bias for this show. But at the same time, I think my final judgment on it will probably be pretty fair.
Yeah. That being said, this is an isekai, so if that's starting to wear thin on you, be warned on that. There are no skill ranking systems, abilities that aren't woven into a hard fantasy world, but this is a very interesting story, just not reveling in celebrating old animation, but going into what inspired current generations, what drives them, and what keeps them going to create, as well as also dipping its toe into the outlines of different creators on a same concept.
Now, that said, partly because of the material that it references on some levels, this show does get weird and hard to follow. um, in same kind of way that, like, Fooly Cooly might be a really, really cool show, but it also has a lot of, like, these really high concepts that you're not necessarily quite sure if they are just a little bit out of your reach to understand, or if they're just so drug induced that you can't possibly actually comprehend them without taking an equal amount of drugs. Um, this show has a little bit of that going for it, especially as you get deeper into the season. So it's definitely not for everybody. However, it is by far the best animated show of this season. Hands down, I can't think of anything else that even comes close. Can you?
Are we talking honestly both story and animation wise, it just itself? Um, this is Studio Mappa with a crew of people who, hey, would you guys like to do a passion project about your favorite shows as a kid from your childhood? And I think everybody screamed and then decided they weren't sleeping at home for a couple months.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, like animation wise, again, I don't think anything else touched this season. Um, it story wise, it was also quite good, but it did get a little weird and murky for part of it. It had a pretty decent ending as well. Um, my final judgment, though, this is probably an A tier show. And that's partly because it is a little bit niche in terms of its audience, um, which I just don't think, unless it manages to develop unexpectedly like a cult following, I don't think this is a show people will remember much going forward.
This is going to be one of the shows that if you're an old anime fan or a fan of animation for anime, you will enjoy this thoroughly. You will love this. Unfortunately, if you are a newer connoisseur of anime, if you don't know some of the history, if you don't know the classics, and I mean like this show was pulling from stuff from, I don't want to say
It was
this.
pulling from like Mazinger and stuff like that, wasn't it?
No, it didn't quite go that far. I don't think it went further than the 70s. The two oldest shows this pulls from are the original Tiger Mask and Yunyo, which, like I said, I believe they're both 70s shows.
Yeah, well, and it definitely pulled from stuff as late as like the early 90s.
Did it?
Yeah, like Record of Lodoss War, for instance, was like late 80s, early 90s era.
Okay, 'cause there was a handful of late 80s stuff. I just didn't remember any early 90s thing on there, but this.
Yeah, it was like on the cusp of early 90s for some of it. It's close enough that I can't place it well enough because back in that time period, we usually didn't get stuff into the US until a couple years after it came out in Japan.
But yeah, there are so many beautiful references, stories. Like once again, it might take you a watch or two to get your wrap your head around the character story arcs for some of them, or if you're a bit younger and haven't had some of the life experiences this show kind of brings up, there are things that you won't be able to understand. But
Incidentally, something I noticed in the preview just now, she has the pegboard in the preview before she dies. And I without actually giving spoilers, if you watch the show, you'll catch why that's strange.
yeah, there was a couple odd things going on here. The one last thing I do want to bring up, when I say it's also a classic feel, this is a 1980s anime fantasy world, which the difference in that is one, I'm just going to say the furries are full on old school animal furries. These are your Suikoden style. You know, this, let's see here. It'll be the grid. If anyone here would be familiar with the furry scale, these are your 3s and your 4s for the most part. What with one notable 5. But that's I don't like it's the problem is this hits me on so many good notes because that's I love that era. I love that aesthetic and I want to put it in S, but I think you are right. It's just hitting me a little bit too perfectly to me to get a good bias on that one. And it does have those weird feelings. The fact that you have to be heavily inebriated on several substances to kind of help wrap your head around a few concepts in this also helps me, but the town I live in has 6 colleges.
That is a lot of colleges.
Only 2 of them are technicals too. So yeah, there is a lot there, but I can agree. I can put that down to A. I can definitely see that just because I knew there were points that I could not binge this. I had to set this down around, I think it was episode 10, let it finish because I knew old anime hits hard. It either didn't finish or hits you like a goddamn sledgehammer.
Yeah, there was definitely a few weeks there where I just kind of let this build up before I ended up going back and just binging the rest of it at the end.
Oh, because there are some emotion. It hits you with emotions.
You don't always understand what those emotions are, but it does hit you with them.
Yeah, I think there were 3 shows that had me actually crying, and this was one of them.
Wow. All right. Well, if we're ready to move on.
Yep, I think that's good. I got all my out of my system. What do we have?
Next up, we have Medaka Kuroiwa is impervious to my charms.
黒岩くん、この時間ね、先生いないの。河合もな17歳、大阪生まれ。息をするようにモテる女。おはよう、黒岩くん。
おはよ
おはよ
う。おはよ
う。おかしい。なんでや。私に見向きもしない男がいるなんて。ありえへん。なんであいつはキュンキュンしひんの。こんな可愛い子にしかめっ面ってありえへん。
東京ってなんて過激な場所なんだ。大丈夫か、女ちゃん。
私が ミチェロのメダカ絶対振り向かせてやるから。
All right. Well, this is the show that has probably easily my most hated female protagonist of the season.
We don't
Just
like the kind of women
everything
that
about her.
relies on her looks, cute charms to get the way what she wants.
Yeah, everything about her is just completely antithetical to anything that I can stand in a person. um, not only that, but it needs to be said off the bat, this show is positively riddled with just dumb animation errors and stuff. Very famously, it kind of exploded on the internet that like there's a scene near the beginning where she's supposed to be intentionally flashing her panties at the protagonist, and instead is flashing everyone but him in the shot. Um, just makes no sense at all. Uh, this show is like it's worth a hate watch if you're interested in watching something that's that kind of bad. But I can't say that this should go anywhere except the trash category.
Oh, I'm surprised you're even agreeing with the trash. Like, as far as like, is this shoujo technically? Like, it gave me that vibe.
You couldn't call this shoujo because this is really targeted towards a male audience who is supposed to be, enjoying this female lead and all of her shenanigans. The problem with that is the fan service is neither good nor plentiful. Um, And of course, also, if you have problems with that sort of thing, the female lead is underage. So like it's just not a good show. But it's also, if I'm being objective, not so bad that you can't get entertainment value out of it. It's actually not the worst thing from an entertainment perspective that I've seen this season by a wide margin. It's just very poorly done, and a lot of the enjoyment you'll get is from how bad it is, not how good it is.
And
Hi,
hello,
Kiku!
and
Welcome!
Kiku and Pix, they are both rating in. How was stream, guys? We are
Thanks.
only just starting. Yuki is ranting about how she hates girls who rely on their looks and bad animation.
It's not even just the relying on looks. Like I can understand that. If you want to leverage your assets, you go, girl. But if your entire being is based around how much you want other people to worship you because you think you're that special from being cute, I cannot handle that level of narcissism.
Yeah, so that is definitely going into our. You said, hey, we only do new shows. That's part of the rules of this thing, Pix. Trust me, if we were doing season 2s, I would have a lot less to bitch about and a lot more to be happy about. Almost all of the season 2s from this season were really good.
You won't be seeing Solo Leveling's rank because it will not be covered since it is not a new show this season. We did rank it at A rank, as I recall, in our previous seasons. That was largely my influence, I believe.
Yep, the season 1 did not have either the, I think it was the crew behind it wasn't quite firing on all cylinders yet, or they didn't have enough budget because they didn't believe in it as much yet. But yeah, go ahead, try to blame me. But we have a bit to get through, and this is the list from that. I actually had a couple extras on here we didn't need to have.
Whoops. I know. Fugi just stays up. I don't turn it off. All right. Should we move on from this one, or did you have anything to add?
No, that's like the fact that you put it in trash and not skip kind of surprised me, but we can move
I
on.
do try my best to be objective and not purely rank off of my own biases.
All right, on to our next trailer and next show.
Next up, we have Uwelblot. All right. Content warning for this one, just from the fact that they literally couldn't make it past episode 1 without, again, very literally dressing. Whoa!
More readers,
Dressing
welcome.
the lolly as a actual prostitute.
Oh, that's okay. How much of this did you happen to watch, Yuki?
I only caught episode 1 for this one. I know it was kind of on your side of the list, but I had hoped to catch more. It just fell into the Prime Video hole.
Yep. Okay, so Uwelblot is based off a manga, a fairly old one at this point. I think it even has a sequel now. Hey, Halbert, how's it going? Dead tired? Have fun. When I am a fan of the manga. I have been waiting for it to get a little bit further before I catch up. I like to watch stuff in chunks like that. But when I started this, I was happy. I felt something was very off. And it took me until I was talking to my buddy who also happens to enjoy the series to realize they skipped the first volume of the manga. The one that helps explain the main character, his motivations, the general supporting cast that shows up in episode 1 for no apparent reason, and a bunch of other things. And going through the show, they decided to very much skip on a couple other bits. There's just a little bit here missing, a little bit there. They managed to keep in all the extenuating fan service and a chunk of the dark, I don't really want to say gory, but bloody, dark aspects of the politics. You miss a little bit of that drive. You miss a little bit of that subtlety that was in the manga, that was a big part of Ketzel's its character. And this show wants to be Vinland Saga's quality, and it winds up in the Berserk era. It's better than Berserk 2016, 2017. Definitely better than what that did. But it's not quite up there. If it keeps
Yeah,
going,
I know this show definitely had some problems. It seemed probably slightly above par for this season, but just based off of episode 1, it could have definitely tanked after that too.
yeah, animation is not my strong suit. So I'm not the best at telling you, oh, this is great. Oh, this is not. Oh, this is. It was serviceable for the most part. There was nothing in it that made me go, ugh, other than the fan service, which just feels so out of play. It's like I don't even remember that being that big in the manga. I'm a little piece of me is one like wants to rip that open and compare it to the show. Like, how prevalent was this? Like, how often did they show this off? It just like this feels to be a little too in my face about someone who had to crawl back from the dead to exact his revenge a decade later. Story.
Feels like it's kind of detracting from the primary premise, huh?
Yeah, and there's so much going on because this is supposed to be a show about such a crazy world, about political, corruption, about how a kingdom built on lies will crumble in the face of true strife. There's so much they could have done here, and it failed. It just
Missed opportunities, huh?
Yeah, just so much. If they would have gotten that right, I could have put this in the A. If I feel B, just from how much it does do good, but as a fan of the series,
From what I could tell, overall quality-wise, I could agree with B. Based off of what I saw in episode 1, assuming that quality stays relatively consistent. Especially if we're comparing it to the other stuff this season, it certainly looks a cut above most of the other things that we're running into this time around.
Sheer animation quality, it's not bad. It's just they left too much on the cutting room floor. They cut too much out. They didn't let it they wanted to push through the story, which I could very much understand. This is a very slow burn story.
So do we think that it kind of dropped from B into fantasy trash then, perhaps?
It's dark enough. I don't want to put it in the trash, but at the same point, you might be right on that, though, just because it's edgy enough, it's kinky enough.
It might have tripped in the dark and landed in the trash dumpster.
Yeah, maybe later seasons can help pull it further out, but I think you're right. I'm going to put this at the top of the trash just because of everything we have. But we also do try to keep stuff ranked in its own category. But yeah, no trash on that. I don't hate it. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. I'm not angry, son. I'm just disappointed.
Yep. All right. What do we got next on the list, Yuki?
Next up, the elf girl's cat is secretly an S-ranked monster, also known as Bihineko.
Actually, hold on. On this one.
Sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say, hold on. Let's if we can we move this to the end just so we can put the more of the heavy content warning shows.
No problem. I did have to rearrange things because some of the trailers died on us.
Yeah, we didn't have too many good ones.
So in order to make sure I had them all, I had to rearrange. But we can certainly move those sort of shows towards the end.
Yeah, I'll try to poke up on that. But yeah, we will have.
Do we want to move this one too then?
Which one is this?
Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf.
Unfortunately, I ended up missing this one in its entirety, so you will have to make that call.
Well, the trailer starts off with kind of a nude scene, so let's do that just to be safe. We'll save that for Adult Swim, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, we will move on to possibly the greatest alchemist of all time.
Oh, you're right. Our Wanadu Studios.
これが僕の新しい姿。本当にファンタジー世界だわ、これ。
ようこそバーダ村へ。
好きなだけいてくれ、匠。
一緒に来るかい？
寂しくなる。
You can tell a show is quality when we're not able to find a subtitled version of the trailer.
お世話になりました。
This is a Crunchyroll too.
初めて来た大きな町は
Yeah?
見るものすべてが新鮮だ。
帰れ。ここはお前のような子供がいていい場所じゃない。
マリアと言います。よろしくお願いします。ここには払い下げの魔術書がたくさんあるんであります。
この人は今まで会ってきた貴族たちのような人ではない。
これまでできすぎなくらいいい人たちや場所に巡り会えたのも全部過去のおかげ。
これからの成長や出会い、すべては匠くん、あなた次第。
僕たちはお互いにお互いの翼なんだって思うんだ。決まった。僕らのパーティー名は
Okay then.
Yeah, this show is definitely fantasy trash category, isekai trash category.
You know,
No questions about that.
Was it?
was among the more enjoyable ones of those we had this season, at least if you're the kind of person that likes to see, like, stuff kind of getting built up other than the person, like, the towns being improved and things like that.
Quick
But,
summary of this, and hello, was it Cage or Micah on there? Man gets killed,
hello.
gets teleported to a fantasy world, gets overpowered abilities from Goddess, slowly builds harem. This one happens to count more on his ability to build materials as an alchemist more than I am OP as Crud and can just swing and win. The biggest twist I will say is on this is, I don't even know if it's a twist or good concept because we have seen it quite a bit, is other isekai protagonists that kind of serve as rivals possibly later.
They're arguably the villains to a large degree, with one exception.
Well, they're part
But-
of the antagonist faction at the very least.
Yeah. Also noteworthy, this could impact some viewers' enjoyment of the show. This is one of those shows that involves like a magical slavery contract system. So if that's very much not your thing, you might not be into this show.
I hate the fact that we have to ask Japan, like, we understand you have a couple weird concepts. We know you're trying to get better. Don't add slavery back into your rotation, please. Just no, this is something to be broken. This is a bad concept. No, it is not charming. Please stop it.
Yeah. It puts the protagonist in a weird place because ostensibly the whole reason that the bad guys are bad is because they're so into like slavery and racism, but he just kind of like starts out going full into hiring slaves.
Yeah, yeah, we are familiar with that. I don't
Yes,
know if
we
that's
are.
where is that where the trend really started picking up steam? I know around the time it came out, it popped up a lot, but
It certainly didn't hurt in popularizing it, I think, but I think also a lot of this is just like the author's barely disguised fetish leaking out over and over again.
mm-hmm. That being said, I liked it better than Guild Receptionist. It didn't disappoint me. It showed me what it was on the cover, and I enjoyed what it could be.
Yeah, it was, decent junk food.
All right, anything else you want on that one, Yuki?
No, I think that's plenty for that show.
All right.
Next up, Flower and Asura.
ある日カモメくんがいつものように空を飛んでいると海の底にキラリと光るものを見つけました。おや、あの光はなんだ？そうカモメくんが思った時でした。
僕の前に道はない。僕の後ろに道はできる。
怒りの苦さ、また青さ。4月の奇想の光の底を椿し、歯ぎしり行き来する。俺は一人の修羅なのだ。
お前の本当の願いを言え。私が叶えてやるよ。
私、放送部に入りたいです。花は咲く、修羅のごとく。1月放送開始。
Alright, this is a show that is based around characters' whole thing being reading Japanese poetry out loud to people. This one was just far too niche for me. in concept to be saved even by the above par animation or the soft Yuri sub themes. Did you end up watching any of this, Agent?
I didn't realize this was a show.
I think you said the same thing when we did the preview the first time around.
Yep. One thing I do want to ask, do you know if the broadcasting club is a thing they're trying to push in Japan, or is a thing that's coming back? Because I swear to recently, the last couple of seasons of anime, it's been popping up, or last couple of years, it's been popping up more and more.
I don't know. There's nothing I've heard to that effect, but like it could just be one of those things where they're looking for a club that hasn't been used as much to try to kind of set things apart a little bit. Because every show has the student council and like the manga club or whatever,
Or the sports whatever anime we're doing currently club.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looked nice. It was decently pretty, but the show was very obscure in its content and also very slow paced. For me, this ended up being a skip. I couldn't bring myself to watch it. It sounds like Agent completely forgot it existed. There's got to be an audience for this. I don't know who it is outside of Japan, if I'm being really honest.
At least we could say there wasn't, well, at least as far as we could tell, there weren't any shows that didn't get brought over while this one did.
There were 2 shows that did not get brought over.
Yeah, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
I actually
in fact, one of them I was pretty interested in watching, but
yeah, I actually don't bother to look at it, because every time we've looked into those, it's like, wait, I actually really like this one. Why wasn't this one brought? Why did you bring any of this garbage over instead?
yeah, I was pretty interested in watching the I Have a Crush at Work, Can You Keep a Secret? But that did not get translated, sadly, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough for that little bit of ranting out of me.
Up next is Okitsura. Fell in love with an Okinawan girl.
俺は中村照明。この春沖縄に来た。好きな人もできて。
There's some CGI water.
あ、キャンサー。
Yeah?
なんか様子が。誰？
ああ、ヒーナ、おじさん好きだからね。
ターヤが。あぎじゃテール、顔色悪いな。魚食え。
テール、あんたは今沖縄特有ののんびりした時間の中に。
おーい。またごめん。やっと来たんち。
盛り上がってる。
ようニーニー、ほらカーナテールに訳してあげんと。
海がもったいないって。お前可愛いこと言うな。また魚いるところ教えてやるさ。
うちなタイムのことやしかんて、うちなあのことやしかんならんちんつらしみそれ。
なんて？
起きた。今日来たんですか？
はい、朝の便で。
こんなところで何してたんです？
いや、まあ海初めて見たんで入ってみようかと。
Alright. Did you end up watching any of this, Agent?
I got the bit at the initial, then I went back and sped through a bit more. There are a couple problems I have with this. The first one being, it really wants to be a tourist anime for Okinawa, for the Japanese
Well, it
people.
100% is. There's no question about that.
Yep. It's which isn't a bad thing, because showing off the interesting concepts of an area especially as remote and unique as that, can be very entertaining on its own right. The other problem is, if you're familiar with a trope in anime of the is it the Okinawa accent, or did they have another term for it?
That is one of the accents, or what that is a term I have seen used for that. Yes.
It's extremely heavy. You want to think, if you're an English speaker, the proper British accent, or the old hillbilly Bob Strangle with a bob in the bow and all that kind of jazz. It's, if you speak English, you can kind of tell the difference, and you can generally make it out. I have actually run into a couple of straight up hillbillies that, man, whew, they talk about accents. But unfortunately, we are reading subtitles. And a accent that's hard to understand does not really work well with subtitles.
Yeah. That is definitely a challenge they faced. I think it's fair to say that Okinawan is kind of similar to Pidgin from the Louisiana area, where it has basically words that are a completely different language mixed into it, or that are modified to be somewhere between the two languages. But my take on this show, they did a good job making the girls cute. The kind of ancillary love story that kind of tugs things along is decent as far as this season's concerned. There is some very egregious CGI periodically in the show, but it doesn't come up very often. And weirdly, their mascot character seemed to get better animated as the show progressed. He was kind of rough in the first couple episodes, dropping a lot of frames and stuff, but he looked a little nicer later on. Those background dancers, though, those were just comically bad.
Oh, background CGI characters that look bad? Never. Not in my anime.
These were probably the worst CGI characters this season. Again, comically bad. That said, as Agent noted, I really, as someone who enjoys learning about things like Japanese culture, I think there's a real place for this in terms of it's speaking to that love of learning and finding out weird, cool factoids about a part of Japan that we don't usually see that much of. I think this probably objectively is kind of like a C show. If you're not into learning about Okinawa, this probably isn't for you, but it's a decent watch.
Romance is a bit basic again, not too much going on, but there's nobody I really hated. Just a lot of oh that kind of moments for me.
I mean, they did a good enough job that the rival character felt like someone you actually wanted to root for instance, which is better than we've seen with a lot of shows this season.
Yep. But all right, what do we have on the up?
Next up is Medalist. Unless you want to save that one for later too.
This happened to be also one of the ones, because was the Hulu one, I believe.
I think it was Hulu. I'm not totally sure. I definitely didn't see it on Crunchyroll or Netflix or Prime, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, it's I don't remember seeing this anywhere.
It definitely wasn't High Dive, yeah.
先生は私がもっと上手になりたいって言ったら手伝ってくれますか?
Oh right, no, this was High Dive. This was Hulu.
Yeah, I think it was probably Hulu. I think it came up as a Disney show when I was researching it, which is Hulu in the US.
ヒカルちゃんまでの距離を感じて自分はまだ何もできない、このままじゃダメなんだって冷たい気持ちも抱えていたいんです。 私ナッチマリオっていうの。この子は三桁涼香で三桁ろ。牛乳いっぱい飲みんね。ミケが認めた友達だし。
俺は親父やヒカルみたいな才能はないし。
喋んなブスエビフライ。
一緒に探していただいてありがとうございます。
おおきに。さっきは忙しかったわ。
できないことと向き合った時間は未来で壁にぶつかった時の助けになるから。
靴を斜めにしても転ばないようにしたい。腕を大きく振れるようになりたい。上手になりたい。もっと上手に。
Right.
So this ended up being a skip mostly just because of the platform it was on and that tending to fall off our radar, I think.
Yep, no, it's Hulu. The tag I have. Yeah, I remember watching the start of this, and I think I forgot about it because it was the only Hulu. If there's a couple things on Hulu, it helps me remember it, but that being that one, it trips me up so bad.
Yeah, it's hard to remember to go check a platform for just one show. From the looks of it, as far as I could tell, like this was something I was kind of interested in watching, but definitely completely fell off my radar. That said, I think this is fair to say if the concept of watching 3D CGI lollies on ice does not appeal to you, this probably will not be the show for you.
Yeah, it does try to go into more of the skating technicality, if I remember correctly, from what I remember watching on the first couple. But it also brings in the fact that that's also a very weird and a bit uncomfortable nowadays for the child aspect of it to do this.
I mean, the thing is, like, with stuff like figure skating, realistically, the characters would be starting at a very young age because the people who compete in, like, Olympic figure skating are typically somewhere in, like, the 12 to 18 range, as I recall.
Yeah, like I said, it's I always have the problem of it feels like that almost beauty pageant kind of feel, and it just
Yeah. I understand there's a little bit of an inherent creep factor to that. I will not disagree. So, again, if it's your kind of content, go for it. If it's not, you probably aren't going to be interested in that one.
Or if you're just kind of looking at figure skating, it looks like it could be good. Like, the problem is we had a hard time telling. If you have Disney Plus, if you have Hulu, maybe give it a watch. But unfortunately, this flew under our radars. All right.
Next up, we have even given the worthless appraiser class, I'm actually the strongest.
俺の名前はゴミ拾いじゃなくて愛んだ。俺が弱いからいけないんだ。鑑定。
私も力になりたいから。私回復できます。世界中の雫使い放題。お役立ちまくりです。
わしの名はウルスラ。世界中の守り手じゃ。ではこうしよう。小僧、わしがお主を鍛えてやろう。貴様は最強の賢者から直々に手ほどきを受けるのじゃ。生半可な覚悟で挑むことは許さぬぞ。よろしくお願いします。
精霊の目で超鑑定。
Yeah, there's no excusing this show. It's I can't believe it's not isekai fantasy trash through and through. It looks way more epic from the preview than it is by far. The elf boobs boobily. There's a harem that goes all the way down to the lolly range. It's got skill systems everywhere you look, and stat screens, and which really makes even less sense in the context of a show that's not an isekai.
Yeah, honestly, the one thing it even rubs me a little bit the wrong way that I just keep getting irritated on bit by bit is, oh, he's this class, that's completely worthless. Then protagonist goes to show, no, it's actually the strongest because of X, and nobody gave it a chance. Like, I don't mind. I understand in real life that, you know, sometimes it's like a certain scale that when you do video game analogy equivalents to it in your show, just so everybody can relate to it easier, everybody knows most video game classes are very worth it, are very good, or if you just understand the right guide, are good. Quit making that a trope. It's dumb. Very much. Most of us do not like it.
All right, I'm going to expand on that for a second, because the thing that really rubbed me the wrong way about that was that they had a whole direction they could have gone with that would have made sense for the class that they're talking about, where they could have been like, okay, well, it turns out actually that knowing information about your enemy is really good, right? That's not where they went with it. Instead, all of his stuff is just like OP super abilities that are only vaguely called anything to do with identify, that are actually granted to him by an external source in the form of a magic eye given to him by somebody else that keeps getting more and more powerful in ways that confuse even him about the fact that it's happening. So they completely failed to even leave up to that basic portion of the premise, which means that this is really just, it's just fantasy slop, and the only real reason to watch this show is for elf boobs.
Listen, there were plenty of this
abundantly
season.
honest. What was that?
I said, there was plenty of that this season too, so...
Yep, and there's not even an abundant quantity of said fan service in this show. It's certainly not by far the steamiest one that we have going.
Oh, it's... what is it, like, the thing they like to do the most was the ear waggle, which... ears are your thing, I guess. This
They didn't even do that the best.
yeah. This was the schlockiest of the schlock this season. This is the schlockiest of the schlock this season.
I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely worse shows, but schlock definitely feels like a very fitting word for the show.
Yep. If you... it's pure trash. It's... I know there was a goal. Was there a reason to do the goal other than just the goal? It's...
No, not really. It was just like, hey, this is what we're doing now. And then suddenly, like, weird side stories popped up that tried to give the anime like a direction for a minute, and then it didn't matter.
Yeah, it just I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. It's...
Yeah.
If it did anything worse, it would be in Skip, but it's just scraping by.
Pretty much. It's mindless, brain off type of entertainment for sure. All right, next up we have From Bureaucrat to Villainous. Dad's been reincarnated. Side note before we dig in, the ending theme on this show goes weirdly hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdly good song openings and endings this season in a whole bunch of weird places. That being said, I'm normally the villainess side of our reviews. I
actually did watch this one to completion.
Yeah, I was gonna get into that, but I haven't had this much fun with a villainess show in a long time. This very much like on the boiler. It's like it gives you what it says on the front. This is your middle age. How is how are you gonna say this is the old man in an Otome game.
I think middle age was the right term. Middle age office worker is how they describe him in the show.
Yeah, I don't know. 50 feels old for middle age though, but all right, that's
It's certainly on the high end of it, yeah.
I can live with that. I'm rounding up those years enough where I can agree. I can be happy with 50 being middle aged. Very well done. It's like you think the joke of, oh, he's a well off, sensible, I don't want to say kind, respectful office worker. No, government worker even. It's like he is a
correct.
Very well done bureaucrat. And that aspect gets so many good jokes. It has that almost Freaky Friday kind of feel to it of juxtaposition.
But also the otaku aspect adds a lot too, not just for the main character, but also the ancillary family members who we see a lot more of as we start to get into like the mid and late portion of the season.
All right, because his wife and daughter are watching him through the guise of the Otomo game he is stuck in.
Meanwhile, well, that's spoilers, but
yeah, there is a bit going on, and I think is continuing on to a season 2 directly. I don't think it's stopping at 13 or 12 episodes. I don't remember what it had exactly, but it does feel like we're getting more with this. This isn't trash, I don't think. I think this gets into
it has some vaguely trash vibes to it, but I agree, it probably doesn't belong in the trash category. It's a little too weirdly good for that. And a big part of that again is like that really well implemented otaku aspect of it, where they're bringing in like these pieces of culture, and the main character has just enough of an understanding of what's going on to as like an outsider to the genre without it being the usual character who just like is obsessed with the game that they're stuck in and knows everything about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun and interesting things going on here. I think our first B is a good place to do this. This is definitely not
I'm in agreement. It feels kind of B tier to me. It's a high C, low B, maybe.
And once again, also a weirdly good ending theme too.
Yeah, for sure. Not just the music either. Like they went weirdly hard on the animation for that as well, for a show that otherwise has a pretty limited animation budget.
Yep. Okay.
Moving along, we have I left my A rank party to help my students reach the dungeon depths.
本日をもって俺はこのサンダーパイクを抜けさせてもらう。これは A ランクパーティーを離脱した俺が最高の元教え子たちと共に最高の夢を叶える物語。じゃあうちのパーティーなんてどうかな。俺が役に立てることを君たちにアピールしないとね。
生配信しちゃおうよ。面白そうだから。きっと精霊の導きに違いありません。頑張りましょうね、先生。興味深い。そんなアーティファクトがあるなんて。遊具が幸運の4枚目なの。
俺たちはクローバーだ。みんな慎重に楽しもう。
You want to take first impressions on this one, or should I?
I'll throw down a few. This show felt like it had a bit more potential at its opening, but quickly diverts into, oh, we're going to be a fantasy show about a kind of... was it his class that was looked down upon, or was it just he was looked down
No,
upon?
he himself was just being like weirdly abused. Like they were basically taking advantage of him for doing all the logistics for the party, and then acting like that was like all he was good for, even though it clearly objectively wasn't. And also their party fell apart without him doing that.
It's
I don't know. This show is just full of all kinds of stupid holes and things that don't make sense. Animation's okay. Characters are okay, but like this is purely fantasy trash for sure. There's really nothing redeeming the show.
It felt like they were going through a checklist of fantasy tropes that are currently popular and built a show around those.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, I could tell you more tropes that happen in the show than reasons why they happen.
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. And then they bring in things like live streaming your actual dungeon raids, because obviously that makes sense.
Well, it feels like they wanted to go with that aspect for the streamer aspect. There is some interesting world building you could do with that concept around, especially with, oh yeah, no, dungeons are things that we have to deal with and explore and figure out why the heck this mysterious dark thing popped up. It's it's just a part of the thing. We stream this. It's we like streaming. It had some potential in it. It just, I think it was just because it took some good pieces from good shows that have done it better, and I'm just thinking of those instead.
The stuff that happens just doesn't make sense within the context of their own universe. Like the thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way the most about the streaming aspect was how like they had characters that were basically VTubers doing reaction streams to their stream, and that just doesn't make any sense in their world.
Yeah, there is a
I won't linger on this show. It's not worth our time to linger on it, frankly.
No, it's just once again, it's disappointing. It's disappointing trash. All right.
Yeah.
What do we have next?
Sorry, next up is a Meku MD Doctor Detective, colloquially known as Anime Girl House MD.
先生って統括診断部のドクターなんですよね。なのになんで救急部で働いてるんですか？
僕はレンタル猫の手なんだよ。救急部が忙しくて猫の手も借りたいっていうのを聞いて勝手に約束しちゃったんだ。うちの部長が。
小鳥が遊べるということは鷹はいないから鷹なしって読む。けれど私は鷹尾だ。鷹がいるうちの課ではこいつは単なる小鳥になるってわけだ。これ噂の呪いの動画。バカみたい。一人で見てれば。
アメク先生は芦屋道満という陰陽をご存知かね？
緊急を犯すのは皆呪い殺される。
大きな紐に足を食いちぎられた。青い血の男。
この件にもあなたにも構ってる暇がないんです。捜査情報を部外者に漏らしたりできませんが。探偵ごっこは医師の仕事ではない。
高尾はあんな性格なのでトラブルが絶えなくて。
確かにトラブルばかりですけど、高尾先生は一流の診断医ですよ。
患者を総合的に見て、あらゆる可能性を検証し、診断する。それが統括診断部だ。
Okay. We talked about this one quite a bit in the early part of the season. I don't want to spend too much time reiterating those points, but before I get into what I want to say, do you have anything that you want to put in about this one, Agent?
Not so much. Like, One of the key aspects that might be lost in translation is the Japanese culture is a very respectful, very proper people in how they act and how you should be act around them. One of the biggest selling points of the main doctor is that she is very brash and very in your face about stuff to almost an obscene level to Japanese culture. In America, she would just be an average, like aggressive person at best, at worst, even.
If even that, yeah.
It's like,
She's just kind of a normal person by US standards.
yeah, and it's that's about it. Other than that, I'll let you go off on the rest here.
Sure. So one of the things that we touched on a lot last time around was that you need to have like kind of an extensive medical knowledge to really have any hope of following this show. Um, in a way that you would be able to appreciate it as a mystery and or have any hope to, and to have a possibility of like figuring out what was going on before they revealed it, which is like, kind of one of the big things for mysteries, right? um
Generally,
I need to go a step further and say that this show completely lost me um around midway through the season, when it became abundantly evident to me that every single case that they were doing was stolen from other mystery properties that I have seen in the past.
ooh, I was not aware. I did not pick up on
And
that.
done more poorly. Um, so, and what made that the most abundantly clear to me is one of the episodes hinged around the side effects of a medication that was given for a condition that I myself personally suffer from, and and thus am keenly aware that no one has been prescribed the treatment that this episode revolved around in over 20 years. There have been better medications on the market, and that also means that if you do know things about medicine, um, you would actually be thrown off the track for what was going on here, unless you also happen to know that the plot was being stolen from something else that came out a long time ago that you had already seen, as I had.
Okay, damn, a bit more scathing on that one. Just because, like I said, we covered a lot of this, and it's very hard to go into any further detail without just doing spoiler chunks on this. Would you think C, or do you want to say skip on this one?
I'm going to say I feel like this should actually go in skip because A, I wasn't able to bring myself to complete the series, and B, this series violates the most fundamental basis of being its own genre, which is that it doesn't really give, well, A, it basically uh, pirates everything from other sources, and B, in doing so, it reformats things in such a way that the viewer has really little to no hope of ever being able to participate in the mystery.
Yeah.
You can't really fail much more than that at being a mystery.
Yeah. All right, Yuki, what do we got next?
Next up, we have Hint into Another World from Salaryman to Big Four. I will let you take the lead on this because I know this was almost certainly one of your favorite shows of the season.
We're at the point where isekai power fantasies are, hey, it's a nice, respectable job where my boss likes me, gives me the tools I need to complete my job, and doesn't work me into the ground for a pay that doesn't matter.
the true power fantasy in our day and age.
Oh, that makes me want to scream. I'm holding that inside at the moment. Not getting into any further politics. That being said, this is an isekai power fantasy.
It's an isekai for the working adult.
Yeah. The downsides I will say to this are most of the problems are solved very easily and very simply with basic managerial skills, basic, commerce skills, and which could all be very big problems in a workplace and kind of like that, which I've been in jobs that have good, jobs that have bad, and it's amazing how much of a difference that does make. That being said, the main character is likable. The story is decent. Like I said, I am enjoying this. Yuki, what would you say on the animation side for this sucker?
Oh, the animation side is budget at best. The best thing I can say that this show had going for it on the animation side is, if I remember right, they didn't really rely on CG for the most part. Like, their janky monster hordes and stuff were mostly hand animated. But this show definitely was on a shoestring budget and was probably being pulled along by some really like trainee level animation teams.
They didn't do horribly. Everything is passable and decent. And I do say I did enjoy some of the interesting character designs. I think that might be more from look like the manga this is based off of, though.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. This is trash. This is pure trash. That being said,
oh yeah,
I want to put this towards the top of our trash pile today because
it's atop the trash heap.
Yes, does. The Demon Lord looks proudly upon his water general. There is some interesting world building, but this is a very basic show. If this had wanted to dig in more, if it wanted to expand a few things out, it could do better, but overall this is nice, comfy, well done trash.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to that. I feel like I'm pretty much in the same boat on that assessment. If they had a bigger animation budget, obviously that would have made it better. If they had expanded more on a lot of those concepts and maybe stepped up to some more creative or interesting solutions to some stuff, that also would have been great. But that's not really what the show ultimately was about. It was just, the lens through which we viewed this power fantasy, and that's fine.
Yep.
It's at least honest about what it is.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to propose that we go ahead and take our kind of mid-session bio break at this point, because I could use some additional water personally.
Oh, I was very prepped for this. I have 3 water bottles next to me today.
Oh, wow.
Well, okay, I should say water bottles. I have a water jug, a Gatorade, and an energy drink ready to go. But all right, we will be back shortly. Everyone, and see you in a minute or two.
BRB.
I was waiting for you to come back. I was waiting for you to come back before I jumped off of my scene, but it's not a problem. They just heard me on yours before they heard me on mine. But all right, what? Hold on. I gotta scroll down. I really need to make a scene for just this co-op bit. All right. I gotta pull that up too. Actually, there we go. What do we have next?
Right. Next up we have, I'm a noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. Let me go ahead and set the setting correctly on my side because everything moved around on me.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I'm not even in the right scene. And yet somehow it was still working. All right, there we go. Now we're in the right scene.
Tell me you weren't, then you weren't. Tell me you were, then you weren't.
What?
No, nothing. I'm incoherent at the moment. Play.
Okay.
小さき者よ。大きな魂を持つ小さき人間よ。
俺の顔だよな。なんでこんなことに？魔法を学べるの？魔法は王族や貴族に独占されている。でも今はそれを自由に学べるんだ。ね
えリアム、一緒に狩りに行かない？
私で力になれるのでしたら。
目指すは独り立ち。やってやるぞ。テレビアニメ没落予定の貴族だけど暇だったから魔法を極めてみた。2025年1月放送開始。
If you watched The Seventh Prince and thought, I would really love to have some discount bargain bin, we have Seventh Prince at home, then this is the show for you.
Oh, this is also like that was a okay, slight difference. Like that was a reincarnation. This is a isekai kind of. It is an isekai, but like that aspect is like worthless to the premise of the show. It feels like I don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is the. Are we on the 3 or 2? This is the second one of. Hey, this premise sounds kind of cool of learning a magic-based system in a fantasy world from an isekai character's perspective. Abe masters magic in episode. Was it 1 or was it 2?
It might have been 1.
Otherwise,
yeah.
It devolves into fantasy. I'm OP as heck, and I'm going to get all of the Oh my god! This also had the slavery contracts too, didn't it?
Did this one have this? Well, I guess sort of. Yeah. It did. Like technically, everyone entered it voluntarily. In fact, they practically demanded it in most cases. But they were technically becoming as familiars. But it's basically the same thing.
It's okay.
They did say outright that they would not be able to disobey his commands.
All right, there it is. It's like just familiar packs. Okay, that's odd, but it's like okay, I can. That's a nice workaround. But yeah, no, they did say that. And it's like, it's. This might have gotten a little higher ranking, but unfortunately, it has some really good competition this season for its own concept.
Also, content warning in that, of course, the ancient dragon turns out to be a lolly.
I'm a Fire Emblem fan, and even I'm irritated by that. Okay.
Next up, we have Promise of Wizard.
行き先は大いなる厄災によって壊れかけた世界。 この世界の真実をあなたに見つけてほしい。賢者の魔法使いとして召喚に預かりました。
空を飛んでる。本当の魔法使い。
賢者様は飛んだことある？俺に捕まって。魔法使いは約束をしない。約束を破れば魔力を失うからな。言葉はとても大事。祝福することも呪うこともできる。
地面に墜落してきそう。
あれが大いなる厄災だ。そのために君の力が必要だ。
魔法で光を灯して見守っていよう。
一人で生き残る
Oh,
力
who
を
is singing this opening? I
全
know
力を
this
尽くします。
voice
賢者
actress.
様、口の中が天国になったみたい。
I couldn't tell you.
人間たちは俺たちを信用しない。
相手になりましょう。
知ってるよ、一人ぼっちの賢者様。
無数の光をまとって彼らは笑い声を響かせる。
テレビアニメ「魔法使いの約束」。どうか賢者様のお知恵をお授けください。2025年1月放送開始。
All right, hold on a second. Hold on, because I have a single bit I want to do. I just need to know who does this really quick.
Go ahead and look that up.
By me. What does me do? Why do I know me? Because this is very. I will look this up after when we go to the next trailer. But all right, so because Yuki, I believe you left this one to me for the most part.
I watched one episode of it. I will let you take the lead because I think you watched more, but I definitely have some take of my own to throw in.
Okay, there's one more thing. All right, so this is a anime based on a gacha game, and those generally go into one of two different directions. The good direction of they take the concept of the world to slowly dig you into it, let the characters from the game themselves be introduced organically as you explore more parts of the world and get more introduced to it. Or B, they throw a bunch of the favorited characters at you right out of the gate. They introduce the gacha system in world and just kind of peter along through the world by going through each individual character's like story and archetype, so everyone has their favorite character's chance to shine, and you don't feel slighted by not seeing the one that you like the best not get shown. Now, the one premise I will give this show that I found very interesting is the big calamity and big bad that they all have to fight is the moon. I'm sorry. I just really wanted to do that. It was very fun in there. I strained my voice a little bit doing that. Probably peaked on my mic too. This does the second. This is the second so badly. Dear God. I don't think I even heard too much of the other characters later on. Thinking about it. Go ahead, Yuki.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get right up on the mic for this, at least on my stream side, and I feel the need to say this is the exact kind of garbage drivel that drags down the entirety of the anime genre as a whole, and is the sort of thing that makes it difficult for us as enthusiasts to have the thing that we love recognized as an art form. It should not exist. It should be killed with fire. And I'm of the strong opinion that this sort of thing just drains resources and talent from projects that could have been actually good.
By the way, everyone, I will put money down that this isn't the most hated show out of this season for Yuki either.
Probably not, no.
I have a good guess on what is for yours. It's that This is my third least favorite show from this season, by the way, including the stuff that I just bounced off of.
And I will remind too that I have attempted to be abundantly fair, even with the shows that I have a bias against. I can't do that with this show. It has no redeeming qualities. It is a waste of animation talent through and through.
Episode 1 had
from the objective perspective.
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah.
we're going to give it a little bit of the episode 1 had some interesting concepts. It's like they were introducing a very neat world, a very interesting thing, and they were kind of just throwing you in and letting it kind of evolve around you, which can work. This isn't that though. It's no, but we needed to get the story moving. We need to introduce characters. Go. It's no. I'm gonna put this in skip. I'm gonna put this at. For now, it will be the bottom of skip.
And I will fully acknowledge I've got biases against the type of show this is. The male gotcha harem has no appeal to me. I get that. My hatred of this show goes so much further than that.
Yeah, and once again, this isn't going to be the bottom of the barrel for either of us. This is my third least favorite show.
All right. Moving right along. Magic Maker: How to Make Magic in Another World. All right. I've got some complicated thoughts on this one, but you want to start us off?
Okay. Ooh, closed out of that. Ooh, my bad on everybody.
I'll tell you what. I'll start us off with the content warning, which is that if the concept of a 30-something-year-old being reincarnated into a child's body and the central romance of the show revolving around his relationship with his own kid sister is uncomfortable to you, give this show a pass.
Other than that, yeah, this is another isekai, not direct power fantasy at the start. This does take on the more slow burn. It when we were asking complaining about a noble on the brink of ruin mastering magic. He figured that show figures out magic turn episode 1. By the end of this season, the main character still only has what he considers a basic grasp of it. It's like he's only become a novice at that point. This does take
Although, I will point out, and this is spoilers, so apologies for folks, but in order to accurately dissect this show, it is important to understand that later on, they do in fact reveal that he has been lied to and magic has existed in this world all along, and he is the descendant of the only people that can use magic.
Only that's also not true, since we see plenty of other regular humans use magic or gain magical powers.
Including his own childhood friend there that just picks it up and learns it with no relation, and his sister that also turns out to not be his sister and
not related by blood.
So yeah, they undermine their own premise and create a flurry of plot holes.
That being said, the way they do build onto the magic system without that core aspect of only this person should be able to use it, which is, I think that came up in the last episode of the season after they had already thoroughly debunked. It's like, oh yeah, there's also this single rule. No, there's not. We've just proven that dozens of times. Heck, even when they were going through other stuff, they kind of disproved it in other way. I don't. Ignoring that fact, which could be explained later down the road, because there is enough mystery.
Until they screwed it all up, it was a pretty cool attempt at building a magic system for a show of this quality.
Yeah. Oh, it's. I think. I feel like the reason they can do that, and remember I don't want to do too much spoilers, but the person who basically drops that normal humans shouldn't be able to use magic. kind of doesn't understand what the state of the world is in, and the people who know what a little bit of his backstory don't fully comprehend what magic is in itself either. So I think there might be a handful of misconceptions floating around to throw off the audience there. That's the only thing I'm going to give on that, because I have to dig into too much detail. Other than that, I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting pure trash. It was very slow paced, but in a way I like to digest the world. Enough going on. It did throw some darker aspects early on that didn't quite stick around, but
I do have to make one note as an update to what I said about this show in the early season. I had mentioned that the first goblin they introduced was like really well done in that it felt like a legitimately terrifying creature, and that kind of stands for that introduction. But it again was undermined by like everything after that in the show, where the goblins quickly become just like jank cannon fodder, and they fight like much stronger creatures than that without them ever being presented as being scary. Um, so like I had high hopes for that element of the show, and they just never really followed through on it.
it reached a little higher than what it wanted to be, but at the same point, it was trying to be better than it was. So I do want to fault it too
Yeah,
much on
I
that.
give it credit for what it achieved there, but the fact that after that, also all the enemies ended up being just like janky CG models for the most part didn't help either.
Yeah, that's about all I really have to say on that one without going into too many spoilers. What else did you have on that, Yuki?
That's pretty much it for me on that one, I think. I think we should save this one for later.
There's a couple I can imagine. Where do you want to put the ranking on this one? Because this, I can see this in trash. I could also see this bumping into C or B.
I definitely don't think it's quite a B. It's somewhere trash or C tier. It's I feel like it's not quite trashy enough to be trash, so I'd call it a C tier, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this
It just doesn't.
top of C just
It
because
just
it
doesn't
does a
have
lot of good stuff.
that trash aroma to it, you know.
Yeah, it feels like a isekai that wanted to be a higher concept that kind of failed in some executions. All right.
That seems pretty accurate. All right. Next up, we have Bogus Skill Fruit Master. The full title's a lot longer than that, but I am not going to say it.
俺のスキル
そんな
すくすく大きな身になれよ。レーナと肩を並べる冒険者になりたい。戦闘スキルがなくたって自力でなってやる。
スキルの実？
そうそう、絶対勝手に食べちゃダメだぞ。
シチューにその木の実を何個か使ったのですが、よろしかったでしょうか？
これは新たなスキル？どうやら俺はこの世で唯一の2つ目のスキルを持つ人間になってしまったらしい。
私は私の信念で冒険者をします。ライトさんのお役に立てるように情報収集しなきゃです。主賓が来なきゃ始まらないわ。木の実マスターのライト君、ようこそモニカボルスとの鍛冶工房へ。
これで俺も冒険者の仲間入りだ。史上最高の冒険者になって歴史に名を刻むんだ。
Yeah. This certainly is a show that happened. So, okay. The main character has a infinite supply of fruit, which he can keep growing, that gives him special powers, and the ability to eat that fruit without dying, which no one else can do. And for some reason, only ever chooses to do this in an emergency when he's already under attack and him and his friends are in mortal peril. This is a show where it would make sense for the protagonist to just gorge himself on fruit and become all powerful, and he actively chooses not to do that for reasons that are completely not explained.
One thing I really want to point this out because we have complained a bit about shows on their title being very blunt about what they are and then pulling the rug out from under you in a very bad and irritating way. This does the opposite somehow.
Yeah, bafflingly.
It's
the protagonist also is objectively the worst character in the show, as evidenced by the fact that around episode 9, when he's completely cut out of the show entirely for like several episodes, and it focuses on the female lead and a female villain from earlier in the show teaming up, the show becomes significantly better.
Yeah, it becomes from a schlock. Okay, this is not an isekai. This is a pure schlock trash fantasy with RPG elements. I think they dropped half.
You're gonna get some stat screens in this show.
I think they dropped half of them like halfway through because there was like two goddesses: the goddesses of skills and the goddess of like talents. Like I don't remember anybody ever bringing up talents later on.
Yeah, no, it never really became a thing in the show.
It's I'm not quite sure what was going on here. It's
definitely near the bottom of the trash barrel, though.
Yeah, it's like it's better than Girl. It's better than Appraiser. Noble on the Brink of Ruin. That back half kind of saves it.
Yeah, like the back half is better than that.
Okay, I'll put this just below A Rank Party, just because that.
Yeah, it's definitely not better than A Rank Party.
Like it's mid that. Other than that, the token lolly with the appraisal skill likes pizza
to a unhealthy degree.
Wait, once again, I live in a town with 6 colleges. It's we had a new one open recently. Pizza's a staple in this town. Like that came off as weird to me even.
Listen, for context, this girl is more obsessed with pizza than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, okay?
Yeah, that's the biggest reason I wanted to bring that up. Okay, weird. Ready to roll the next one yet, Yuki?
Sure am. Next up is Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You.
木崎は弟みたいなもんでしょ。
みずほ、熱下がった？よかった。
何したってバカには変わりない。
そういうとこだぞ。お前はもうちょっと。どうせ昨日も夜中まで原稿書いてたんだろ。
分かってた。ずっとこのままじゃいられないこと。
So this is the show that has the distinction of being the first show I've seen to really reference the pandemic lockdowns, but makes the baffling decision to obfuscate that and refuse to refer to them by name in any way, shape, or form, and kind of act like they're this thing that will just sort of blow over that's happening in the background.
Side note, I finally was able to figure out where I had heard that band from Promise Wizard from. Same band that does the opening for Goblin Slayer.
Ah, okay, that would track.
I can
see why that might pique your interest.
Yeah, there's a very Like you are the visual. I can do audio insanely well most of the time. It feels like there is something with the way that vocalist does these light, almost like their voice hits a tone like they're pulling at the strings of like a acoustic guitar every so often. I don't know why that hits me so well. It does. But all right, back to this show. I didn't watch this.
Yes.
I didn't catch a single bit of this. Hey, Droxad.
Hi, Droxad.
Hey, how's it going? You're catching us a good chunk of the way through our season.
We're pretty well into it at this point. I think we're about 2/3 the way through.
It's a lot of garbage this season. A lot of garbage.
It is the season of trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bounced off this show pretty hard too. I managed to watch the first episode. I could not possibly bring myself to watch more than that. The protagonist is awful. The pretty boy Bishonen love interests are like two-dimensional and vapid as far as I could tell. It makes no sense for this girl to like be surrounded by this hot of men, which I'm sure is part of the fantasy, but like I don't know. Like this show couldn't even sell itself on being like a romance at all. It was clearly just like a reverse harem deal, and I almost feel like there might have been a gacha game that had to do with this.
As far as I know, but yeah, no, I didn't even bother with this one. I was hoping you were going to do more, but it's like if it was that bad, I wasn't going to be able to stomach any of this then. But
Yeah, totally fair.
I'll totally ask you, did you have a favorite anime of last season? Because we are going from the old rankings of winter. But as for Yuki, Skip, how far
Definitely a skip, yeah.
are we throwing this at the bottom of Skip, or
I mean,
is this
if you're
above Wizard?
Yeah, if you're a really ardent fan of this kind of reverse harem genre, if you're the kind of person that wanted to watch Promise of Wizard to see all the hot guys, maybe this is the show for you. But other than that, give it a pass.
All right.
All right, next up is Sora Iro Utility. Content warning on this show. It does have some degree of fan service in it, which usually takes the form of a middle school girl bathing with like post high school girls that are
Thank you for the hydrate.
Vaguely but not technically love interests.
It wants you to think it's a sports anime, but it's more of a love show with.
It's Yuri bait.
Yeah, it's
Yuri bait with a golf skin.
It tried to draw you in with golf and then throw Yuri. I don't.
No, I'm pretty sure it tried to draw you in with Yuri and then said, "Hey, but golf."
I don't know.
It is at its core really a cute girls doing cute things show.
Yeah.
That happens to be sports for the cute thing.
A little piece of me thinks it would go into C. I almost want to throw this in Skip just because of how meh.
I managed to get through to the end of it. It was not by any means the worst show this season. I could almost even give it a B tier on the animation quality, but the real the reality is if you don't want to watch cute girls doing cute things, you're not going to be interested in the show.
Tony, there are enough ongoing sports anime that are incredibly good. You don't need a no, okay, I was gonna say you don't need a golf one, but we really don't have a golf one. Like
There was one that popped up. I don't know if it's still going though.
yeah, that was like really over the top and crazy. That was less of a golf than it was a
It was like the Prince of Tennis of golf.
yeah, which golf's a little bit harder to do. So I can understand it. But
okay, that one. Let's see. Yeah, no, for sure that one. All right. Let's pull that one closer. And that one. And that one. Maybe? That's kind of okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just kind of rearranging things because we're coming up towards the Adult Swim portion here.
yep, totally. Yeah, you are getting just in time to watch all of the extra. No, don't watch these at work. Shows. But
All right.
few more to go before
go
we
ahead.
hit there, I believe. What is next on the docket?
Sort of. We're kind of easing into it.
We've got a couple.
Next up is Momentary Lily. Birdie Wing did a pretty good job of it. The first lesbian golf anime.
自分はあやめという。
うちが茶山か。エリカは褒めち
Yeah,
ゃうよ。
this-
日の下しは日のでいい。遠慮って言いません。
The core issue is golf itself is not very interesting and is very slow, so you really have to have something that
だ
can
よね。これからも
bring in interest besides the sport.
およりちゃん。
But
実は私食べるのがすごく好きで、ほんの一手間加えるだけで幸せが加わるんです。ご飯にタレが染みてるよ。すっごく変わるんです。体にマジでうまいし。ドンドンドン。オッケー。どんどんといくよ。それじゃあみんな行ってきます。お出かけか。この日忘れられない一生の友達と出会った。
And the bot has been banhammered.
suffer not the bot.
全然怖くない。みんな最高。
Okay, let me before because I'm going to go off here in a second. I wanted to ask you two things. Did you watch this one?
I only watched the first episode. It was bad. It was definitely a skip for me.
This has the worst CGI of this season, which is saying fucking something. The story is inconsistent to say the least. The characters are living I don't want to say tropes, but they are archetypes that are barely fleshed out. Most of the show revolves around cute girls doing cute things and I don't want to say post-apocalyptic, but like last man on earth style things, and then switches to high octane battles on the flip of a hat, has their personalities switch as it's this show does. I don't want to be just a dump on it and say it does nothing right. That don't
Sorry,
feel
replying
like
to chat.
well, yeah. Yeah, it's that's why we tend to go over this, and that's why we also have the pre-show where we dig into your first 3 episodes. Momentary Lily is the worst show on this season for me. This is the... Oh, where are you? Where are you?
I don't know. Are you sure about that? We've got one that might be worse.
Yes. I know the one you want lower. That one had plot. This one had things and character cutouts doing things with an abundance of horrible CGI in your face at all times.
I will also throw out there that the characters themselves, while on top of being the only thing that's 2D animated really in the entire show, are for some reason incredibly over animated, just like wasting money on animating parts of these characters at all times that do not need to be moving.
No,
and that in fact moving more than they should for the physics to allow.
They're CGI. They're not 2D. Most of them are CGI in most of the scenes. Like, I think there are scenes where they are hand drawn, but they are CGI most of the time.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like, especially once they go into combat. But I mean, like, we saw the scene there where like the girl runs up and slams into the sign. That was 2D hand drawn animation, at least as far as I could tell. But they made the questionable choice of just having like every aspect of her moving at all times.
Yep. We also like to do the trailers just because it gets to show off a bit of that animation, because it can be hard to describe. And the thumbnails we can dig out for these shows vary in quality vastly.
It really can be, yes, especially when it's omnipresent.
Oh, and it's the monsters in this show are this is the bottom of my skip. If you could talk me into the other show being lower, I will go into that. But Momentary Lily, the studio's known for having outrageously bad CGI. I forget which one it's called, but they are
Gohans, I believe.
Yeah, whatever they love chains. Whatever the one that does the bad CGI chains all the time is that studio. All right.
In any case, I will agree, it is very bad. Do not recommend.
Even the fan service is bleh.
Yeah, no, even the fact that this was clearly like another Yuri bait title could not get me even remotely interested in this show.
Okay, I don't like ragging on things too long. Let's
moving right along then, we have Sakamoto Days.
All right. I think you can open up. Did you watch this one, correct, Yuki?
I didn't make it all the way through this one, but I did watch a pretty substantial portion of it. I would say this show, to me, it's not that it's a bad show. It's definitely objectively a lot better than the majority of the shows this season. It just really failed to live up to the hype that it had surrounding it, and that was probably its biggest downfall in a sense. It could have been so much better than it was. Everyone was expecting it to be so much better than it was, and I didn't even have knowledge of it going into it. I just saw all this buzz about it and was like, oh, okay, maybe this is actually supposed to be something really good. And then it was, it's okay. But the core issue it has, in my opinion, that really drags it down is the fact that it's trying to be a gag anime parody of a shonen battler, and in order for that to work, it has to sell on having that shonen battler quality to it. The reason something like One Punch Man worked so well is One Punch Man was not only a funny parody with good gags, but it was able to successfully subvert the genre because it lived up to the level of quality that we expect from a high-end shonen anime. Sakamoto didn't manage to pull that off. It just wasn't quite there on its visual fidelity to make it feel like it was on par with a top-tier shonen show.
I will say the last arc of the show had a lot of the budget dumped into it for a very big fight scene. But for anyone wondering, yes, this is John Wick, but happy ending. That being said, I know they had to skip a early arc because it kind of involved terrorists blowing up Annie Kyoto for having one of their favorite shows canceled. That kind of happened in real life, so
oops.
Yeah. So that got cut right away. A lot of the early stuff is slow pacing. It's character building. It's introducing people. It did not speed up a lot. On the other hand, that has kind of been a bit of the trend with the really hyped shonen coming off the shonen app, because this is not a physical one. This is one of the it was considered to be one of the big three coming from Shonen Plus, an online only app, the other two being Kaiju number 8 and Spy X Family, both of which hit much harder in their opening seasons.
Yeah, for sure.
This is slow building. Its back half really does feel a lot better, I would say, than its opening. But that's coming from the characters bouncing off the titular Sakamoto. He kind of has the Goku problem in this show to start with. He's kind of the big character that kind of shows up and solves the problem at the end if there is a big bad. If not, he's kind of just chilling, kind of being the big dopey father figure.
He's the Deus Ex Machina character of the show.
Yep, it is kind of fun seeing him in Fat Man form kind of dodge bullets and do a couple other things. They do have some fun with that. It's did that not get one of my big openings? Oh well, yeah, no, it did not get one of my big openings.
I would say overall it's maybe high B.
It's high B.
Maybe low A quality, but probably not.
No, it just ekes out of being A on a couple technical problems. Its story was still only it knows it's a long format story, and it's taking its time fleshing out its characters, which I will say there was not a single character I disliked. Heck, even the big bad with his taxidermy deer head was a very interesting, and like he was a very fun character to see around with a lot of crazy concepts. Like I said, this is anime John Wick happy ending, and yeah, I do really like that. So high B.
Fair enough. I think that is a fair assessment for the show.
Okay.
All right, moving along. Farmagia.
死なせるもんか死なせるもんか一緒に戦ってくれ俺と一緒にみんなを
Original character designs Hero fucking more so.
A new animation series by the production team of Fairy Tail.
それが
Oh.
最強のモンスターを収穫したらすぐに勝負してやる
ブクロは天の相棒クロ
てめえの畑のことは後にしろってんだこのゼロ点野郎
しっかり修行して立派なファーマギアになるんだよ。
見たことない雑草毒はないみたい。
頑張ってるみたいだね調子はどうだいみっともないぞテン甘いもんが足りてないようだな俺はオラシオンセイスになってみんなを守ってやるんだ
魔王城から伝令が魔王ディルクロム様がお亡くなりに
ついに来たぞわしが選ばれる日が真の理想郷を築き上げるのだ
命ある者は己の意志に従って生きることが大切なのだ。だから私は神魔王に反旗を翻す。ぶっ倒せ。行けファン吉ファンゾーンファン太郎。ユナイトレッツアック。
ミネロお兄ちゃん、お願い、みんなを守って。
ルツオス今だ。負けるか。
心配すんなって。俺たちは強い。
All right. Well, that's an awful lot of hype for that, isn't it?
All right, let me say one thing that I'll let Yuki go off. Some of you might have noticed in the trailer, the CGI ant monsters looked a little weird. This is a anime based off a game. They decided to rip the CGI models for the monsters directly from said game and use them in the anime. Yuki, go ahead now.
Yeah. So, up front, the biggest core issue here is when you have a franchise you're trying to establish that is a monster collecting franchise at its core, e.g. Pokemon or Digimon or what have you.
I would say raising. This is, from my understanding of the game, this is technically closer to like Rune Factory.
Or maybe Monster Rancher might be a better example, but nonetheless, at its core, it's still a collect monsters thing, even if you're raising them rather than battling them or whatever. You want the monsters to be appealing things that people would want to collect.
Or at least memorable.
Yeah. And so if what you have instead are ugly as sin monster designs that don't make any sense and have nothing cool about them and aren't cute, and then also decide to make them ugly CG that doesn't mesh with anything else on top of that, you have utterly failed in everything that brings someone into your genre.
Yeah, and okay, so you might have we dropped the fairy tale name, and some of you might be noticed, hey, that guy looks like Datsu. Hey, that guy looks like the guy from Eden Zero. Hey, that kind of looks like the guy from Brave Master if you're old like me. Yes, the designer of this reuses his character designs quite frequently and quite often in multiple series he does. I don't necessarily have a problem with this, since he does tend to retool the character personalities to fit the new show while keeping their base archetypes. These are just base archetypes with the base character designs with bad CGI monsters in a plot that's very
not serviceable.
base video game-y and trope I didn't finish this. I got about halfway through it, and I was just like, yeah, then now this is gonna happen, now this is gonna happen, now this is gonna happen, now this is gonna happen. There's just nothing to this. Okay. Now this happens to be ranked as my second worst show. I believe this is your worst show, Yuki.
I think I in all conscience, I have to give this worst show, partly because of what I already mentioned, and partly because, by all rights, with the team that they had and the budget that they were given, this should have been at least a mid-tier show, if not knocking it out of the park for the audiences, at least, that are into that, art style and everything.
Or genre.
And it absolutely didn't.
Or the game. Or
yes. It failed at every level it possibly could have, while having every possible advantage.
Okay,
I can only assume this was a very troubled production, where they, the creative designer was forced to do at the end of the day a lot of things that they didn't want to do, which made them really half-ass it. And then they were probably also given a lot of mandates about the property that they were using, and I can only imagine that's why we have the 3D CGI monster problem. Like, they probably somewhere along the line thought that putting the actual models from the game in would make it more marketable because it would be more representative of the game or something dumb like that.
Yep. The only reason I want to put this above like Momentary Lily is I understood and could follow and like the plot. It was very basic, and I just it's like I knew what was happening. I could enjoy that. Momentary Lily, I couldn't enjoy the plot of it.
That's fair. On the other hand, Momentary Lily, like, we knew it was going to be bad going into it.
Yeah.
It didn't add a layer of massive disappointment on top of that.
Yeah, with it having the edge.
Momentary Lily just is what it is, and it comes from a studio that does that exact thing. This came from a team that has top tier talent and was still something that we are comparing with Momentary Lily.
Yeah.
So personally, I dock it for promises undelivered.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We have one, maybe two more shows before we hit the Adult Swim section, I do believe.
I'm gonna say we're actually headed gradually into the Adult Swim section at this point, because from here out, every show has contained at least some element of sex or other mature problematic themes. Moving right along, we will continue with The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World.
Okay,
期待の新人ね。さっきの腰抜けどもよりはマシなことを祈る。うわ
あんたら逃げろ。こいつ。
Reminder, we are now in Adult Swim territory. You have been warned. There will be fan service in some of these previews.
Yeah.
行け。俺が食い止めてみせる。
それは実力テスト用の私の使い魔よ。
何？
まさかあれが？
例の冒険者です。
そういえば依頼書に何か書いてあった気がするぜ。なるほどな。つまりテストはすでに始まってたってわけか。
いや、あなたが勝手に始めてただけよ。
伴走プレートセット。
Is this an actual trailer?
何あの言葉を忘れへんな腕。
It sure is. It's from Crunchyroll.
というか、何なのあのやけにキレのある謎の動きは。
伴走チェンジ。
変身した。
燃え盛る熱き友情の戦士。絆レッド。
何それ。魔力は一切感じなかったから魔道具の類ではない。ならば一体どんな原理で魔力を使わずどうやって一瞬で変身を。というかなぜ爆発したの。落ち着きなさいイドラ・アーボルン。未知の現象に対峙した時こそ冷静に観察し分析を。
バーニングピザッとパンチ。
技名ださ
なぜパンチ一発浴びただけで爆散したの？
どうだ、実力テストは合格か？
ええ、合格よ。
よっしゃー俺は冒険者の浅垣東が気軽にレッドって呼んでくれ。
あんだけ赤けりゃ言われなくてもそう呼ぶわよ。
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to just lift a whole scene out of the show for that, but it is the same trailer we had for the openings of the season.
Okay, would you like to start before I go me
Sure,
on this?
why not? I mean, I know this is definitely one of your favorites. You're going to want to delve into it pretty extensively. This show, from my perspective, it's got a relatively fresh, concept it's introducing. It's competently executed, and the protagonist actually gets laid flat out. And with someone that it makes sense for that to be happening with. I mean, it's not. If I'm being objective, I probably still put it somewhere around like a high B, but I certainly have no complaints about this show. It was entertaining and amusing from start to finish, and it's an enjoyable ride. As trashy as it can be at times, I definitely don't think it falls into the trash category. It's just a little too interesting and unique for that.
Yep. So, all right, me going on this because, all right, if you wanted to just make anime for me, this is pretty close to that. This is, I am a Power Rangers fan. I am a Sentai fan. I am an Isekai fan. And then taking some of the best concepts from all the tropes, melding them together, having the characters bounce off each other while avoiding almost all of the pitfalls both genres can fall into, while still going into celebration. The amount of small detail work for both Isekai fans and Sentai fans is kind of outrageous. Like they knew what they were doing with this from start to finish, and I loved every aspect of that. The Red Ranger is he is a Power Ranger who has finished his storyline. He is the in-game protagonist, and he is dumped into this isekai world, which is that genre of isekai that's been gaining more momentum lately. Hey, what if we dumped a already powerful person, into said fantasy world? How do they deal with that person who doesn't revolve around any of their systems? And they take their time to explain that. They set up a vastly interesting world system that's also a monster of the week, even with generals, to the point where even the Red Ranger is like, oh, this is just like the evil enemy generals are learning his lesson. I did like this because while the Red Ranger is the main protagonist of this story, he is, like I said, a completed character. So a lot of the stuff that he learns are, oh, this is how this works in this world. Why some of the other characters, especially the main female lead, are kind of the ones that have their character progression. If I have one major complaint with it is the female lead is dressed like the skimpy sorceress from most fantasy anime. And it's that video game genre. That has like the four characters that you pick from, kind of Gauntlet style. The one being the busty mage. It's like she is a rip on that. She is a rip on that character. I don't know what she is. I
think you're thinking of like Dragon's Crown.
Yeah, that's
the sorceress from that.
Yeah, she's a rip on Dragon's Crown sorceress. And that's kind of my biggest detraction from this.
I think that part is fine. Like, it doesn't really hurt anything in the context of this anime. Like, Yeah, the fan service there isn't necessary, but it's not like detracting actively from her character either.
Not from her character, but the fact that her design sticks out so much in comparison with everyone else. The only time I really enjoyed it better is when they were in the desert and they do everyone's, oh, we're all going to be wearing skimpy bikinis for a bit. It's like, all right, she blends in better, but you put her next to other mages. You put her like pictures of like luckily when she was a little girl, they didn't have her in the skimpy bikini, but it's just, it always stood out. And that's kind of the problem I have with recommending that. It's like so many people, it's like, oh, it's an isekai. Oh, there's the big boob love interest. Oh, and it's just their eyes glaze over.
Yeah, I suppose if your problem with it is how tropey it feels and unnecessary, I get that. But the fact that it makes the main character stand out is in some ways a strength because the main characters should stand out, right?
Yeah, I can it's like I said, it's my only, like, the other reason I even bring it up is that's my complaint about the show. Everything else it does is so good. The fact that the Red Ranger is powered by friendship. Literally, that's like
literally, yeah.
We are not making a figure of speech there. He is powered by friendship. They even do the good thing of gradually introducing like a bits of his backstory and like why he is the way he is, and so many fun things. Hell, this series even has the classic, oh, we're in an isekai, so we're gonna pull up our stat screen. They pull up a Power Ranger as stat screen with him, and everyone's just kind of, what the fuck is with you? What?
Yeah, I think it turned out to actually be his exact entry from a magazine article about him.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm throwing this up in A. Yuki, do you want to detract down to B or talk me down on that?
I would call it more of a high B, mainly because this show could have been elevated by having a bit more animation budget. I feel like they used what they had very judiciously, and it looked serviceable. But Sakuga, this is not. You are not going to get anything that is a visual treat in this show. You won't get much that is painful on the eyes, but you're not going to get anything that fills you with wonder either.
Okay, I can be talked down that far. Yes, is a great series overall. I hope we get a season 2 on this. This will definitely be on my future to watch list. But once again, for sure. I will also say the characters have development. You actually see okay, I've brought this up to a couple people. It's like, oh, it's a show. It's like, this is a shonen Red Ranger, skull as thick as a brick, protagonist, and he gets laid.
He sure does.
Granted, it's the female love interest kind of realizing, oh wait, I love this fucking knucklehead. I'm gonna act on this.
Yeah, not only that, but like there was technically like an excuse around it too, where she was supposed to be like trying to learn more about how his powers worked, but let's be real, she was definitely DTF there.
Yeah.
And to that effect, the skimpiness of her outfit like certainly does help reinforce that she's kind of like a sexually liberated, empowered female character, which I think is fine.
It's fine overall. It's just like I want to recommend this to more people, and just having her right out the front, it's like, oh, this is a more like ecchi trash kind of show. It's like, no, they just dressed her very.
I feel like it gives audiences the wrong impression of the show out the gate.
Yeah, that's my biggest deterrent there. Like, I don't have a problem with that. It's like sorry. As much as I do with the rest of like the trash, all this stuff, there's no doing that. I'm pretty sure she was like 18 or at least very much older It's like they do not like, oh no, she's a kid, or she's like, it's no, she is an adult. She is the head of her family. She runs a mansion. She is actively research. It's like she is a fully functional adult in this show in every aspect. And I think I've done enough gushing about it now.
All right. Well, with that, we will move on to Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf.
ここは一体どこなのかしら。
それはそりゃショックだよな。突然一人ぼっちで見知らぬ世界に来たの。
こんなに高い建物に住んでるなんて、和彦はお金持ちなんでしょ。
あ、違った。子供の頃から幻想的な世界に憧れていた。僕の部屋にエルフが現れるというちょっといやかなり変わったことが起きて、夢は現実となった。
お待たせ、和彦。すごいすごい。こんなに発展した都市なんて初めて見るわ。ねえ、あの塔は何？やっぱり高名な大魔同士でも住んでいるのかしら。ね、これから日本語を教えてちょうだい。
この姿を生み出したのは実に久方ぶりである。では人の子よ、その酒と地層をよこすがいい。味見だ、味見。そう、これはただの味見じゃ。
和彦様、助けていただいて本当にありがとうございます。また会えて嬉しいわ。お待たせしました。デリシャス、おいしい。ちょっと何がおかしいのかしら。最近のあなたは私を見て笑ってばかりの気がするけど。
そういう時僕は大抵マリーに見とれてるんだよ。
そういうこと、眠そうな顔で言われてもちっとも嬉しくないわ。ありがとう和彦、あなたのおかげよ。
いや、全部君のおかげだよ。
どうして？私何もしてないのに。
君が来てから僕の世界は随分と変わったんだ。見慣れた景色も今は違って見えて。ありがとうマリー、日本へ来てくれて。
日本へようこそエルフさん。2025年1月より放送開始。
All right. Did you end up catching much of this one, Agent?
No, unfortunately, this kind of fell through my cracks. By the time I was trying to get to this, I was not in a... This happened to be a little bit too emotionally heavy for me to handle at that point.
Interesting. I felt like most of the show wasn't, but there was definitely probably the most emotional scene of the season for me near the end of this anime. I don't want to spoil things there, but I do definitely have to give it credit for that, even if it felt like a tiny bit out of left field. Nonetheless, this was a weird show because it was a slice of life show combined with like a vaguely slice of life-ish isekai adventure. It had that kind of weakness you have with this kind of show where like it didn't really know where to draw the line between the two, and it kind of suffered from like a lack of focus a little bit. But at the same time, it was okay. It was fun to watch. It had a little bit of fan service here and there. It was cute. I can't really call this anything more than like a high C, maybe a B. I wouldn't toss it straight into trash because it definitely does try to be something a little bit different than what we're seeing for the most part. Yeah, I'd say it was more fun to watch than the Magic Maker show for sure. Animation-wise, it was better than the villainous show, but I would say villainous because of its, writing and everything was a higher quality of show than Welcome to Japan Miss Elf. I don't think this is one that we'll be hearing about in future seasons or that people will probably want to watch much outside of its genre. So high C is probably the right place for it objectively.
All right. I think with that, I think we can move on. Unfortunately, like I said, I did not catch too much of this. Life was it was going to be on my late end of the season, and life hit me a little too hard at that point. So
yeah, you definitely had a lot going on this season.
yes, I did. The fact that I got as much done as I did kind of made me happy.
Well done. Good job. Next up we have I Want to Escape from Princess Lessons. You know what? Before we even start the preview on this one, I'm going to give the content warning of kidnapping, sexual assault. I mean, there's nothing consensual happening in this show.
Yeah, the stuff we got coming down the pipeline, there is. This isn't even the bottom of that barrel. But
no, it's not. I mean, this is far less graphic than most of what we're going to see going forward from here. But the type of content it has is very uncomfortable in a lot of ways, even just watching it, and could be very triggering depending on our audience members.
Yeah.
So please be warned.
やったわー、これで
こんばんはレティ。
私には自由がなかった。毎日毎日礼儀作法を勉強して、私は自分の人生は自分で決めたいの。さあ脱出大作戦開始よ。もともと私は王妃なんて向いてない。走るのは好きだし、木登りするし、庶民としてつつましく暮らしたい。自由への香りがするわ。
レティ、
クラーク様。
逃げ道がないってはっきり分からせないといけないね。さあ二人っきりで語り合おう。
The prince will pursue her anywhere.
はいはい。
Let's remember those words.
相当こじらせてるわね。
クラーク様は優しいお方だし、お前を心底好いてる。一度くらいしっかりと向き合ってみろ。
レティへの思いは止めることができない。だからこれだけは許して。
どうしても自由が欲しいの。
自由な君が好きなんだけど、自由な君を捕まえたいなんて心は不思議だね。待っていてくれたんだね。会いたかったよ。よーしよしよしよし。いやー、
なんなのこの状況。なんなのあの人。
怒った顔、真剣な顔、それから笑った顔。あの時からずっと変わってはいなかったんだね。
あの時？
君はもう立派なレディーだ。だから結婚しよう。
近いです。
Alright, I wasn't able to bring myself to finish this show, but from what I did see, unless you have a very specific type of non-con kink, and, great for you if you do, this show is probably not going to be for you.
Okay, was it just me or did the animation quality in this show fluctuate like crazy?
Yeah, it did.
And I don't normally pick up on
most
animation.
Of the show looking not great, and other scenes being like weirdly well animated.
No, yeah, this was one that you thought it was.
I can't even put it in trash personally. I have to give this one a skip.
It's not the bottom, but it's flowers for sure. It just feels uncomfortable. You think it's going to be a standard, princess learns to be independent, learns to speak her mind. No, it's a stalker show. It's a medieval stalker.
And also, everyone is on the stalker's side because it's a medieval society and he's the prince, so whatever he wants is just okay.
Yeah.
No support or compassion whatsoever from her family members, which itself feels weird and uncomfortable because they're clearly acting only in their own interests. And, like, the reality I feel is even if you were actually in that era and you had a daughter that you had to, give to the prince because they're the prince and you have no choice in the matter, that doesn't preclude you from having empathy for your daughter. Like, even just a simple, like, yeah, this really sucks, but it's something we all have to deal with. I had to do it too, and we just have no control over it, would be far better than, no, get back in there with that prince. Our livelihoods depend on it.
Yeah, that's definitely a skip from this season. All right, so the further we go forward here, the raunchier these are going to get here. So just be warned, everybody.
Yep, and I'll let you do the content warning for this one, Agent, because now we're on that Banbaban vampire show.
All right, if you have anything about underage grooming from older men in a very, very, very sexual manner, be warned.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you didn't catch any of this, right, Yuki?
Yeah, no, I didn't watch any of this one.
Yeah, I got a little bit further, dropped it, went back, skimmed through the last little bits. It's all right, so it's about an ancient feudal Japanese vampire getting saved by a small 5-year-old boy and then dedicating the next 13 years of his life to raise that boy to be true and proper and be a virgin. It's very important that he's a virgin. So when he turns 18, he can drink his blood. Presumably dry.
Presumably.
And the reason why he's waiting to 18 is because to him, this is a very, very, very sexual act. To the point where they decide to show off him sitting on his bed, naked, thrusting wildly into the air, imagining what he'll do to this kid.
Wow.
I don't know how to describe it further than that. It's shenanigans from there and very yaoi baiting old ancient vampire raising a boy to devour. But he's a good vampire. He only eats criminals other than the boy he's...
This tasty treat that he's specifically, like, veal raising to consume.
Yep. The only other bull... okay, so technically, I believe this vampire is well known in Japanese mythology. Not as a vampire, but as a Nobunaga's aide.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, because he loves to bring up the facts that the one master he loved to serve was Nobunaga, and the day he died and he drank all of his blood was not only the best meal he ever had, but also one of the saddest moments of his life. It wants to be a modern yaoi with a old school male samurai fellowship feel to it while being a grooming. Okay, I've had enough of explaining this mess. Would you like to put this below or above I Want to Escape from Princess Lessons?
I'm going to leave that up to you because I watched 0% of that show.
I think I have to put it above it just because of the animation quality, which is consistent and okay.
Fair enough. I could also accept the argument that although its premise is, a particular way, it may not be as constantly in your face about it as Princess Lessons is.
Oh no! The naked thrusting and longing for the underage child is a constant theme of the show.
Okay. Well, it does not have that going for it then, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's like that is one of those like. Oh, I guess he's not always naked. They do like to show him off in his shorts with a very inconspicuous bulge poking out of it, as he berates Hortily about the boy.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, this honestly is like is in the Adult Swim section is the show with no sex in it. I think this might be one of the most sexual shows of this season.
Wow.
No, take that back. We'll get to it later. There is one that does it better.
Yeah, we're getting there.
All right, what do we got next?
Next up is I'm living with an otaku neat kunoichi.
主を守るのが私の使命。ヨウマ。お待たせ、スーちゃん。大丈夫。私の生活を乱す奴は誰であろうと容赦はしない。次期棟梁になったあの方にお仕えし、我が身の全てを捧げたい。私を弟子にしてください、すずり様。ようやく見つけたわ、稲浦しずり。この私と勝負しなさい。無視すんな。よーし、今からゲームしようよ。
もうこんな時間。
いいじゃん、明日休みでしょ。はい、決まり。ゲームしてご飯食べて、ゲームしてご飯食べて、そしてダミーをむさぼる。こんな生活いいんですか？いいんです。
しずり、さすがに寝た方が。
まだまだこれからっす。
Alright. Did you end up catching any of this, Agent?
I watched the first couple episodes, then skimmed the rest of it pretty much.
Alright. Do you want to give your initial impressions and then I'll flesh it out, or?
This felt very... It's not an isekai. It's not a premise we see too often, realistically, but this kind of felt like the almost wanting to be a shonen with...
It definitely suffered from some serious identity crisis.
Yeah.
There's actually an episode that's literally called something like, wait, we're a shonen battler now? It's that kind of show.
I remember that they have both, like, in a 12 episode season, they have both a beach episode and a sauna episode.
So, although it's listed as 12 episodes, it's technically 24 because each episode is 2 half-length episodes.
Yeah, they do that double core thing that was common for Cartoon Network back in the day. I don't like this show. I did not like it. Go ahead, though, Yuki. Go delve deeper.
Yeah, so I dug into a lot already in the preseason show, how they have a character that could be seen as very insensitive to the trans community. That remains a problem. I won't go into great detail on that again because we've already beat that pretty significantly. But additionally to that, it does have that identity crisis thing going for it. It wants to be a gag anime. It wants to be an ecchi anime, but it's not particularly funny, and it's not particularly sexy for the most part. And then, content warning again, they of course have like the token lolly character that also gets fan serviced. And I don't know. The show is just like, it's pretty eh. I would definitely say it's trash category. It's thoroughly junk food, but it's not especially good junk food.
I don't even know if I want to put this in trash. This was.
I mean, I was able to get all the way through it. It wasn't bad enough for it to be a hard skip to me. There's definitely an audience for this kind of thing. It's probably where you have it right now is about the right place for it, though.
Yeah, it's I did not like a single character in the show. It's like there was nobody I could get. Like, even skimming through it later on, I don't even remember seeing like who the guy who was supposed to be like the protagonist, like the main character of the series anymore. It's like I think he felt like he disappeared like halfway through the season.
Oh yeah, no, he's not actually the main character. The Kunoichi is the main character.
Yeah, it's
he's an ancillary supporting character.
I don't know. I can leave it there. We can leave it at the bottom of trash just because Ninja, I guess. Oh,
It is what it is. Next up is the Elf Girl's cat is secretly an S-ranked monster, aka Bihineko, that we touched on earlier but decided to save for now.
Go ahead and start.
Wait. We should actually give the content warnings up front on this one.
Bestiality.
Yeah, check that box. Definitely tons of nudity, fan service. There's full-on nipples in basically every episode. Pretty much the episodes are like half real things happening and half fan service. I feel like there's probably some stuff we're forgetting here too, but
there's plenty much. If anyone familiar with the genre of, I can't believe it's not hentai.
This falls firmly into that genre for sure.
Yeah, it's barely on the. It's.
It even has roughly the animation quality of your average hentai.
Yeah, true.
そうか、これが噂に聞く転生。これはベヒーモスだと。我が輩もこれまでか。
やっと目が覚めたんですね。
なんだ、天使か。あの娘は傷ついた我が輩を解放し、食事も与えてくれた。我が輩は命の恩人であるご主人に仕えよう。生涯をかけて守り抜くと誓う。あなたの今にうっとり、実はぴったり。
決めました。この子の名前はタマ。私の正式なペットとして育てます。そうにゃ、私と臨時パーティーくまにゃい。さあ、早く我をはらませるのだ。私はハイピクシーのリリ、ハイドライヤードのフェリです。タマ、もっと。
ご主人、これではエルフではなくエロフではないか。テレビアニメ「ベヒネコ」2025年1月放送開始。
Alright. This series is very, very hard to defend on paper, but it was also one of the more entertaining shows of the season, if I'm being very honest.
It has fun plot. It has fun characters. Yes, all the three. I want to say three because the Dryad and the Spirit are kind of side characters, realistically. All three main female leads really want to fuck that cat.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the other two kind of do too. They're not
They kind
completely
of do,
excluded from
but
the
the big titted elf girl is not only wants to fuck it, but that's her fetish. Okay, the cat girl is the least aggressive and gets the most pass for being a cat girl as well, which
especially because they kind of note that it's entirely plausible that the way cat girls exist in this universe to begin with is via interbreeding with these magical cats that they think he is.
And the other reincarnated dragon girl, who is definitely the most aggressive on wanting to be, I don't even say fucked, is like she wants to be bred.
Oh, for sure,
it's
yeah.
very open about that and aggressive, and it's
she wants to have as many of the cat's babies as possible, as quickly as possible.
And this is the gag that portrays out throughout the whole series that they keep bringing up. And yeah, it is probably one of the most consistent worlds, one of the most consistent bits of storytelling. If you can get over how weirdly horny the whole world is. I mean,
I do want to touch again too on something from the preseason. I won't go into nearly as much detail about it this time, but the way that they subverted the trope of like the stereotypical like macho gay male slash like drag queen character and made their presence be not only like totally socially acceptable, but also like them be a well-respected character in the world, still carries a lot of value to me with this show.
No,
I really didn't expect that from a title like this.
No, it's like I said, it's weirdly hornily wholesome in some aspects.
It is like no, it's like very consensual kink oriented as opposed to like the princess lessons thing being on like the far opposite end of that spectrum.
Yeah, it's like I said, if you could get over that. Okay, funny enough, the one complaint I always had is, God damn, the animation team just could not do nipples right in this show. It felt like.
Yeah, that is kind of a sore point for this show. They just like I think they kind of expected that it was going to get censored originally, and maybe it even was in Japan. So I don't think they put very much effort into the detail there, which is kind of a shame because they clearly did for the rest of the breasts. But I think we might have gotten to see more than we were originally intended to there.
Yeah, which is saying something. But okay, before we get too into this, top of the trash.
It feels like a relatively appropriate place for it. I have a really hard time defending putting it up on like B or something like that, even though it kind of feels like a B to me in terms of like how entertaining it was. But I feel like this is a little bit niche in that like there's a lot of audiences that'll be alienated by this show.
Oh, no,
the
don't get
ones
me
who
wrong.
like it will really like it, but the ones who don't will not touch this with a 40-foot pole.
Yeah, and it's gonna be weird because the people who won't touch it, the people who like it, will like it for not the reasons everybody suspects, but
Exactly.
yeah, it's
And will probably take a lot of flack from the people who don't like it and haven't watched it.
which it's completely understandable. You don't want to watch it though. There is a lot of weird aspects in this show. Just none of them awful as I don't know. There's a little too much to dance around to do in this our Twitch show here for anime.
Yeah, I will say that some of these concepts have come up before in other anime, in terms of like some of these kind of more uncomfortable aspects, and they were way more uncomfortable in their implementation in those series than I've seen them be in this one.
Yep, but all right, I believe we only have one show left.
That is correct. Our last show of the evening is The Daily Life of a Middle-Aged Online Shopper in Another World.
All right, this is on the content warning because this guy gets laid more than anybody I think I've seen in an anime and most hentai.
Now, that said, most of that does happen off screen as like a cutaway. They fade to black before any of the real action, generally speaking. There's still some fan service in terms of like bathing scenes and stuff. Other portion of that content warning, although he does not technically lewd the lolly definitely wants him to lewd her, as does the second lolly, who he canonically for sure at least used sex toys on a maid in front of, if not also banged the maid.
On her instruction, I don't even want to approach anything that's going on in that side of that. Other than that, very interesting content warnings. This is a isekai where the protagonist's only power is, like I said at the start in the trailer, Amazon Prime. He can sell and buy stuff off his online app. I guess up to certain levels, he can't buy anything. This would be stuff that would be on Amazon Prime, and overall, it's a very interesting story. It is the slow, kind of laid back life bit.
Disclaimer, we are not sponsored by Amazon Prime.
Oh, I would sell out though. You hear me, Amazon? I will sell out. You can take over a second. I actually want to see if I can check something really quick.
Sure. So, animation quality wise, this is relatively bottom of the barrel. Don't expect anything pretty here. You're lucky if the character model or the characters are on model in most of the scenes. It's definitely like a utilitarian level animation budget. Weird choices also with like the cat girls who are really supposed to be like furries, and like the guys are furries, but the cat girls aren't completely for some bizarre reason. But they're furrier than most cat girls are.
They
and
are
then there's also this like casual
2.
racism against them. Sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say the cat girls are a solid 2, leaning into a 3 on the furry scale.
Yeah. It's there's so, again, this is one of those series like Bihi Neko where there's so many things that you could harp on about this series, and yet it somehow managed to be one of the more entertaining rides of the season. On paper, this thing looks like an awful trash heap, but it's an awful trash heap that's really fun to watch burn.
Yep, it does a lot of its stuff right. Its dialogue and characters are all likable. The like I said, the world building is also nice. This show,
Yeah, the world building was surprisingly good in this show.
yeah, this show does a lot of good things, and without the protagonist being overpowered or having ungodly skills or being able to do a bunch of crazy stuff, they have to explain how he can do things, and that really does help. And also, the thing I was looking up, you cannot buy a backhoe off Amazon, at least in the United States, which he does buy, but
More than one of them, technically. But he also isn't, strictly speaking, using Amazon. So
yeah,
they get a little leeway in deciding what's available in their online store, I guess.
This is
Yeah,
trash. This is trash. The only question is, Headhunted to Another World, is it below or above that?
I would argue that in terms of like overall fun I had with it, it's above that. Like, Headhunted to Another World probably has the superior concept in theory, but this one had a better execution on the concept that it brought to the table.
Yep, I'll definitely go with that on there. I can see that because I always had a fun, happy time with this. Headhunted, sometimes I was slow and I was like, all right, skip ahead. Did I miss anything? Nope. All right, skip ahead a little bit more. All right, no, missed something. All right, go back. All right, now we'll start again.
Yeah, every episode was at least amusing, even if only in a like, haha, I can't believe they went there and did that kind of way.
Yep. Unfortunately, the last thumbnail I have is one that we didn't actually need to cover. This is reusing it because tierlist.com sometimes likes to be a little twitchy and uncooperative with us. But this will be our final rankings of this season. Anything you can think to move you'd like to move around, or
Not really. And like, I think it speaks a lot to the season that we had this time around, how many things we have in like skip down there, and how very, very light we are up in the higher tiers. In fact, even the C tier is shockingly light this time around. But that's partly because more than usual amounts of things fell solidly into the trash category.
yeah, no defenses for a lot of these. These were just all junk food or garbage. And not too much rising above. Zensu, so close to an S. So close. And a couple
didn't quite make it.
Yep. A nice finished story like that do not do anymore with that. Leave it. The rest of these, I think most of C or most of B, I'm kind of looking forward to a season 2. And nothing really in C I really want to catch up on. And most of this trash, I'm not going to bother ever looking up again, even if who's going to be fair? I'm going to remember our top 3 from trash, probably. Maybe 4. Maybe 4. But
I would probably be there for an Elf season 2 personally. That one, it was a fun enough ride that I would continue watching it.
Yep, I will have to look into that. But all right, everybody, we are actually a little shorter than normal this time. I think it was just because we wanted to get through the garbage. Yuki, well, final rankings on this season at all, or anything you would like to say on it? Because I am thoroughly.
Yeah. I mean, we called it earlier, right? It's the season of trash.
For those watching on YouTube, there's a reason the thumbnail is as it is.
Yeah. I will also say that this was not the largest season that we've had recently. We're looking at like 31 series here, which is definitely a step down from some of the like 40 plus seasons we've had recently, which gives us a little less to work with, but also might be part of why we got through this a little bit quicker.
I would say
Special note would be that solo leveling has definitely proved a lot more entertaining in season 2 than it did in season 1, since that was brought up earlier. Like, I still don't think it's necessarily actually a top quality show, despite the incredible ratings it's getting, but it is very consistently delivering a fire hose of Sakuga, and that goes a long way for people.
Yeah, we actually have one of the big awaited Mawa adaptations coming out next season.
I see.
So we will see on that how more further those hold up. But yep, season of trash, mostly this. As for ending our night, do you have anyone you would like to rate out to? Because most of my people are kind of out, and the ones that aren't playing things that are good for rating into after an anime only stream.
Let me see who I've got. There's
We are good to just call it if there isn't a good option.
I don't know what this Schedule 1 game everyone's playing is. Yeah, we can probably just go ahead and call it rather than reading out. That's probably fine.
Okay.
I will note that you mentioned that you may not be available for the next few weeks. So for folks who would normally be joining us for our Sunday collabs, those will be unfortunately postponed for the next few weeks. And probably once you're available again and back, we'll go ahead and run our start of season anime review.
Yeah, that might be getting moved to Sundays just for other scheduling reasons, and coming back might be a better idea too. If that is okay, better with you, Yuki.
Totally fine with me. We'll work it out in post, but just wanted to give everyone out there in the audience a heads up.
Yep. No, I will pretty much be going on complete hiatus for the rest of this week, and partial hiatus for the couple following weeks. So I unfortunately will not be around too much. Yuki, I believe you will still be doing your normal scheduling.
I'm sure I'll probably fill at least some of those slots or some adjacent slots with some streams of my own. But there's a possibility I may, move the schedule around a little bit, or maybe even cancel a couple of those myself, depending on just how busy I am.
But okay, with that, the final rankings will be posted to Discords and social medias. So follow us when you can, and we hope to see you around again.